Okay, I would like to call to order the city council retreat as Monday, Bruce St. Dennis's birthday. Happy birthday, Bruce.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And I'd like to
Right.
call, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
We're in the last minutes of winter right now. So I'm calling the meeting to order, and first on the agenda, we have public comment. Is there anyone that wants to make public comment? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Anita Duber, box 694, Cannon Beach. Happy birthday, Bruce.
Thank you.
I guess I'm coming here maybe in duality. One, as a citizen of Cannon Beach and noticing that Cannon Beach seems to be getting away from some of the ordinances that are in place for sandwich boards, reader boards, sound systems, decals in the windows, even business signs. And so I'm just bringing that up. I know we don't have a code enforcement officer at this time, so I'm not quite sure what the procedure is, if it's just by citizen filing a code enforcement complaint form, which goes to the police department, which chief might not like me suggesting that, but at any rate, and then I don't know how that works for businesses coming into compliance. So, but I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing is, as a member, vice chair of the design review board, signs have really come into my attention, and just they're being approved by staff before coming to design review board. And in particular, one that I saw this morning is for a brand new approval, and it's an approval for 2 signs for one business. And regulation 17.56.040 base zone 3A states that a business shall have no more than 1 permanent sign. Looking at the application, it seemed to be somewhat incomplete. Staff did make recommendations as far as size. But at any rate, I just feel as a design review board committee member that the committee is somewhat feeling like a ship without a rudder. And we're kind of feeling at a loss about what our duties and powers are when something comes before us, when it doesn't need to come before us. And hoping that with the upcoming code audit that maybe zeroing in on the sign ordinance might be a top priority.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Hmm?
So you're saying that the city actually approved sign, are all the signs supposed to come before you for businesses before?
My understanding at this time is that no, they do not, that there is a requirement that if staff feels they're fulfilling those requirements, that they can approve. When there's a variance to materials or size, that is when it would become for the design review board. Now, if anybody goes through town, you can see there's vegetable signs for me being a longtime resident of how they were approved. But I don't have a tape measure, and this is something that I'm learning is how to figure out lineal feet. And I know that on this particular sign on their application, they say the largest letter is 22 inches. And staff did say that that has to be 12 inches. Their sign is 20 square feet. The other one is 4 square feet. So, and as I said, it was incomplete as far as, you know, the site footage, business frontage, height from the ground, material that it was illegible to me, but I'm assuming that it's marine grade plywood that they're using, which seems to be approved now rather than just wood signs. So anyway, I guess that's before you.
Well, I made a face about the code enforcement because we need to have a code enforcement officer. And I actually had a complaint today that I felt guilty going to Jason about it because he's got so much going on that he doesn't have to worry about my neighbor's lights, you know? So we really do have to have some place for these things to be
Right, you know, and then there's a life-size cutout, maybe not life-size, of the Sasquatch. I don't know what ordinance that might come.
It's a sign.
It
is a
so
sign.
I wondered if it's a freestanding sign, if that, I'm not quite sure where it would fall in not being approved. But
Is it outside?
yes,
Okay, it'd be a sign.
so,
Our sign ordinance, as I understand it, is pretty strict and I agree. I don't think they're
you would
Following.
think, Counselor McCarthy, but what I feel like is that it's being interpreted that if it doesn't specifically say no, you can't do it, then it's being interpreted that yes, you can. And that's where it needs to be tightened up and
I agree.
technicalities and just what the DRB, what our job is as far as signs. I wouldn't be opposed to looking at every sign myself. You know, whether it could be just a quick look or more involved, but
Bruce?
Anita, right now, the police department, well, if people go ahead and go online and put in the code enforcement complaint, police does check those as they're able to. So we haven't stopped code enforcement because we don't have an officer. We are still trying to fill the position. So if either you or those folks would send it in, they'll try to get a look at it.
yeah, I appreciate that, Bruce. Yeah, that's what I wanted to just confirm that that's the procedure right now.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anita.
thanks, Anita.
Any other public comment? Okay, so we will go ahead and continue on our retreat journey. And so very first thing, we're playing catch up from our day one first, and then we'll go on to day two. So first on the list is the rules of procedure review. Is there changes that people would like to make?
We're gonna do the outdoor dining and the bridge naming discussion. Are we adding that to the end of the topic?
Outdoor dining's on April 4th council meeting and.
Oh, hold on just a sec. I think I'm using my notes and I should be using. So I'm sorry, back up. So the outdoor dining is
It's
on
on the April 4th.
fourth council meeting and the bridge naming discussion is on the April 11th work session. Okay, and then we go to rules procedure review. And we had talked at the last retreat, or the first, the day one of the retreat about public comment. And we're gonna make changes to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
And is there other things that people want to change? Yeah. I would like to talk about deadlines, which is on page 2. Or agenda items and I just think it's hard to be prepared for a meeting when we get last minute submissions that are after the deadline that's published, because it does say it needs to be submitted by 5 p.m. of the Monday preceding the council meeting for agenda items. But then in terms of material, I'd like to discuss having a established deadline for material submissions so that we can be prepared for our meetings.
Did we not do that?
Talked about this at the last meeting, I think.
I think we did, and we, I'm gonna accept them. We have a date, I can't remember. off the top of my head. And then I'm gonna If they come in after the deadline, I will let them know that I received them. They'll be included in the record, but I can't
That's right.
guarantee a counselor will read them, but I will still forward them on to you.
Okay,
And I have them so the deadline is 3 PM the day before. And then if late, I'll let them know that it may not be right before the meeting, but they are welcome to speak in person or via Zoom at the meeting.
okay, sorry about that.
I can put that in the rules of procedure if you'd like.
I think that'd be good.
So I can put that, and then, yeah, I'll put that in under the deadline for agenda items. We can add that in there. Now, this has to be approved through a resolution anyway, so this will come back to you guys for review.
But I understood your question, not so much letters to council, but material submitted by staff. Am I missing?
No, I'm talking about public
Okay.
submissions.
Bill and I had a conversation. If somebody was to submit something after 3 and a case was to be reviewed on the record, I had asked, can he write something up that would say that if you got it to us after 3? Well, anyway, my question was, can somebody say, all right, this is on the record, this was received, you had this. Can that be something that that can be used against us because nobody had a chance to read it because it came in at the meeting? And I don't think I got the answer completely on that yet. He did say that it probably wouldn't hurt us. But if we're saying that, let me see, we might not have a chance to read it, but it's in the record. That concerns me because somebody can sue us and use something that we didn't even contemplate or read.
Well, we're getting a chance to read it orally at the meeting. So we'll hear what they had to say anyway.
But I'm saying if it's just in writing, somebody gets you something at 5 o'clock or 10 o'clock the next morning. And it goes into the record and you never had a chance to look at it. That was a concern of.
I see what you're saying.
Um,
And he hasn't gotten back to you on that yet.
he may have, because he said that he didn't think that would be something that could necessarily hurt us, hurt our case, but I still look to see if there can be something there so that it's clear. Because on the record, to me, is a big deal.
Like if it was to go to review, would that material that was submitted be part of the record? Well, it would be.
Right.
And if something is submitted after the deadline, but it's still on the record, I guess it's our responsibility to look at it.
So this would basically be for non-hearing items because I was peeking back in Bill's old emails, and at one of them, he did say in a public hearing, people are allowed to submit documents and testimony in public speaking and at the hearing itself, which is why we end up in that situation in a lot of those other meetings. So I guess for the language we're writing now, we would have to say for non-public hearing items
Oh, okay.
All right.
That
to
was,
be on the safe side.
Yeah, that sounds good.
and while we're on the deadline topic, under on page 6, under filling vacancies with boards and things, I would like us to talk about a deadline for those applications so they don't come, so we have a chance to look at them before a meeting. Filling vacancies on committees and commissions.
I think we mentioned that too. Let me-
Did we?
I don't remember.
I have that meeting.
Ashley has her hand up too.
Oh, hi, Ashley.
Hi, my hand is for a different topic on the rules of procedure. So when you're ready to move on, I have one for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we didn't, sorry, I was just looking at the last.
Yeah, I don't
one.
remember that.
Maybe we didn't talk about it.
Because we didn't talk about also if there's a vacancy and there is just one application, are we going to be forced into putting that person on because there's a vacancy and there's only one person interested, or can we wait? Can we have can we have a committee with one person short for for a period of time till we get more applications to choose from? Is that possible?
We've done it in the past.
Done it in the
Yes.
past, yeah.
You can.
We can postpone the decision for as much long as, well, I don't know, as long as we want, but as long as, until we have more than one candidate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
happening.
even if you have two or more, you can still hold off.
Okay, good.
So if we kept the deadline for filling vacancies the same as agenda items, would that work?
What's our deadline now?
There is none.
Don't think there is one.
Say anything.
Is there a deadline? For somebody to submit? Is it the,
So it's like for our staff, we tell everyone, I need all of your information the Friday before the Monday. And usually it tricks in by Monday. So by Monday before my packet goes out, we want to have everything. Because that way it's included in the packet. We don't
Right.
have to amend packets.
Right.
So we could do the same thing for the applications, because that way they're in the packets.
Right.
I would recommend that you do that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
That sounds great.
There's some things I think are worthy of an exception, but that is not necessarily one.
Right. Okay, Ashley, you have a topic for us?
Yes, I do. Just on my list of things that we had said that we are going to talk about at the retreat. One of them is, and this has not been a concern going forward, but there is some ambiguity in here, but access to the city attorney. And typically what happens is there's some sort of check on counselor's request for legal opinions to the city attorney. So right now, under your council rules, it's pretty wide open. It says, I had it in front of me and now of course it's gone, but basically, anybody can request the city attorney produce a legal opinion. And again, this hasn't been an issue here, but, with other clients, a counselor may have a specific concern that they would like research. So they would reach out to the city attorney and the city attorney would be in a position of, do I complete this assignment and generate, significant fees and costs for the client when it hasn't been authorized by the entirety of the city council? Who has the authority to request this sort of work from the city attorney? So a couple ideas, that all those requests go through the city manager or through the mayor or by, majority vote of the council. Bruce, did I adequately cover that one?
Yes.
And what's your recommendation in terms of who it should go to? Do you have a recommendation? Ashley?
I think typically the city manager, or by vote of the council.
Okay. Everybody in agreement with that?
I have a question. What is the definition of a city attorney's opinion versus if somebody asks a question that doesn't there's a question, there's a question that's not necessarily casual, but it's less than, a definite city attorney's opinion that we're all going to act on.
I think that's a great clarification. So typically it's, that requires more of an hour of the city attorney's time. So, a lot of times members of the council will call me up and just ask me, something quick that I can answer off the top of my head, or just take me a couple minutes to respond to. And typically, we'll just do that. It's when a member of the council asks a question that requires a significant amount of research that perhaps the rest of the council isn't interested in or doesn't think it's necessary, this becomes an issue. So I do think you're right that there should be a de minimis exception to this, for instance, that requires less than 1 hour of work.
Do we need to clarify section 2.13?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is that so we see how many, if any more amendments we have to the council rules, and then we would bring that back in a resolution form.
Bruce?
I have a little bit, it's not exactly on this, but I think it's kind of pertinent to it. I think that the council, individual councilors should be relatively unfettered between, to be able to do their job. And so I think to be access to the attorney and access to the city manager is important. What I would recommend is that if somebody has a question, you can send it directly to Ashley, or you can send it through me. But once that is done, that the answer be provided to the entire council. So it would come to us in an email, the response would be from Ashley in an email. And if somebody wants to have the whole code rewritten, then Ashley would probably send it to me and say, we need to talk and put this on the agenda. But if you just have a question, I think you should be able to talk to the attorney. Did we make a mistake? Is there another way we can handle this? Something like that. I don't think you should be hindered for that kind of a thing, but everybody should get the response.
Should everybody get the question also?
Well, it'll come with the response. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm sorry, I don't, but we don't like when you all copy each other.
I can't.
That's not a good,
No,
yeah.
I know, but
But
I mean, through the proper channels, should the question come to us at the time of the question, or should we wait till the response?
That's your call. But I want to make sure Ashley's okay with that.
Yes, that would be fine.
So Bruce, because I remember that when I wrote to Bill Kobiasman and asked him, I'd done a write-up, a whole bunch of research and a write-up on Title 49 and the takings clause. And I wanted to run it by Bill to make sure that what I said was accurate. And so he said I should ask your permission, and I did, and you said yes, which is great. And then he actually made some changes to what I'd written. He actually amplified what I'd written, added some very valuable material. So I was really glad I could do that. And so, and what I got from that is that you were very generous in allowing us to ask those questions.
I'm not generous.
Well,
I work for you all. And so, and as does Ashley. And so I want to get you what it is that you want. The example that you use might have been kind of pushing the boundaries of should the council ask for this, but I didn't think it was far out of line. Because it did take some of Bill's time. I don't know if it took more than an hour, but that would probably be fine. But you don't need my permission to do anything.
well, no, but I mean, if you're going to be the gatekeeper for us doing that, then it makes a lot of difference to me to know that you are interested in providing us access to them. So that I like that. Yeah. So that makes me confident in the idea.
And that's with any consultants, but
Okay.
mostly with our attorney. But if you have questions about a project, something like that, same thing. I
Okay.
want to get you the information you want.
So that we have the tools to do our job.
Right.
Great.
Along that same line, I would like acknowledgement that you received it. There have been many times where I've sent questions or in material to you and Ashley, and I've never gotten a response back like, yes, we received it, thank you, or that will work for us. I sent something last week regarding the outdoor dining information that might go toward the E. coli or the COVID question. And I never got a response that said, yes, we got it. We'll look at it or whatever. So it would really be nice to have some acknowledgement that you received it.
Was probably on me. I apologize.
I sent it to both
So-
of you.
Yeah, me too. So mostly for that one, I flagged it for Bruce and I to talk about regarding the outdoor dining, but you're right, should have acknowledged that we received it. Bruce and I just haven't connected on that. It was a lot of really good information.
But that happens pretty frequently. It's like sending it out in the air and nothing comes back.
That's, yeah. I tend to think if I get it and I'm working on it, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but I should acknowledge. I agree. And
Brandon?
Oh, as a question for Ashley, would there be an exception for questions involving something of a personal nature, say conflicts of interest? Maybe at the
Yeah.
time, we wouldn't necessarily want the rest of the council to know.
So I think those would all fall under the de minimis exception. Because, if it's personal, that it's not the city's business. So I typically would, talk to you in very general terms about it and then direct you to OGEC. But again, what I have down here is that there's just a de minimis exception. So for anything that is less than an hour, and then with city manager approval or council approval, for more extensive projects. So
Thank you.
if there was, something that it's a question like, is this personal to me or is there overlap with city? As long as Bruce is involved, Bruce is involved and approves, we can move forward with that project.
Okay, thanks.
So Ashley, do you have anything else? While you,
So the other thing in my list, and maybe I'll ask Bruce if now is the appropriate time, is just standards for removal of board members. If we want to address that, I think some of that's in the city code, but also in your council rules. So I'm first going to ask Bruce if he thinks that now is an appropriate time to talk about that.
yeah, but this is the retreat. It would be appropriate time.
and I have it started.
Okay. Should say Bruce and Mayor. So those were my two.
Okay.
So that's on page 6, 4.4. We'll need to look at what it says right now.
Oh, dear.
And this does not give the parameters for removal. It just says that we can do it. Do we have to have a reason for it or?
I'm wondering if
I mean, we should have a reason.
Yeah.
I wonder if in the code.
Okay.
Oh, there's more clarification, which we don't have in front of us.
Do we know? Does
I
anybody?
think Ashley's looking for.
Hmm?
I said, I think Ashley's looking it up right now.
Is that the concern? Is that a concern?
Yes.
That we have a reason?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on mute. So, yeah, I think this is both a council rules issue and also potentially an amendment to the code. And, in your administrative provision, you have, the qualifications for members of the committee, commission, and boards. And then you have each, individual board has a section that talks about removal from office. So for instance, let's just go to, a random one. So your Tourist and Arts Commission, you have removal from office. A member of the commission may be removed by the city council after a hearing for misconduct or the non-performance of a duty. A member who is absent from 3 meetings in a calendar year without an approved excuse is presumed to be non-performance of duty, and the council shall declare the position vacant unless it finds otherwise following a hearing. So you have that's what your municipal code says, that, they can be removed for misconduct or for the non-performance of duty. But then under your council rules, the council may remove any member of any board which it has created or has created by the charter by a vote at least a majority of the city council, except for otherwise provided by state law or ordinance. So the question came up, and for the council to consider, is do you want more leeway in removal of board and commission members? They all, serve at your pleasure. And because they're volunteers, there's not a lot of, liability for removing. But, for example, do you want the clear authority and ability to remove a member of a board and commission member if they, are not demonstrating the city's values in other venues? For instance, a member of board comes to a city council meeting and acts inappropriately. A member of one of your boards is, I would say this would rise to the level of misconduct, but let's just give an example, made harassing or discriminatory comments at, an unrelated meeting. Would you like to be able to remove that person? And would you like that person to be on notice that they could be removed for that type of behavior?
Bruce?
I think that the council should be the ones that decide whether or not somebody has gone, too far or done something, excuse me, that is inappropriate. There's nobody else to do it. And you do make the appointments. So I would make this as broad as you can. I don't think that the council would ever do something like this without a reason. And I think that there are times when you just want to go ahead and make a decision and have somebody off of a board without necessarily going through what somebody had done or whatever, because then you get into kind of a quasi trial, and it's just, this is what we know or think happened, and we think that you should, not be on it. And again, you can give all the additional information, but it's you set the tone all the way through, and you don't have to do anything, but you do set the tone. And I think that this particular provision is something that you should have.
So I always have a concern though, that if a person's on a committee and they come to a city council meeting for public comment and they say, I'm not doing this as a planning commissioner, I'm speaking as a private citizen.
Mhm.
And then we don't like what they say, and the next month we boot them off the committee.
I can't imagine y'all doing that.
Well, I know, but but we're setting these
Right.
procedures for.
But if you have something where somebody goes and everybody knows the person's a board member and then says some, pretty terrible things or does something, do you want to be held that, no, we can't do anything? Or and this is actually more to the person's protection, that you don't have to say that, you called somebody this, or you purposely misrepresented the city and, incited some people.
I think you're getting, that really bothers me. I mean, I have to say, I think if in your capacity as a member of that board or commission, you do something egregious or act inappropriately in your capacity, but what you do at another meeting or what you do out in public, I don't think we can start regulating that, because then I really think you're getting into freedom, First Amendment, freedom of speech issues. And that really bothers me. I mean, if somebody, because I think if you go and do something in public or at another meeting, I think that the censure of what you did will, I think it will come back around. I just don't think that we should be policing people's behavior or board or commissioner members' behavior outside of their duties as a board or commissioner.
Mhm.
That really scares me, because it's kind of a slippery slope into becoming almost like a moral overseer. And I certainly don't want to be in that position.
And I understand that, and again, this is your all's decision, but to me, I would not want to be in a position that if something like that happened and it was very damaging to the city's reputation, to not be able to do something. So it's just, we're on opposite sides on it.
Yeah.
But I just think you all should be in the control of anything you can. And I would expect you to use good judgment and not just go off and, kicking people off the board.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of other considerations that come into play then. If somebody happens to be a really good friend of yours and they do something when they're out in public or say something at some other meeting that is not part of their duties, and then you'd be less inclined to judge them. You know, it just, there's so many, it gets so complicated. There's no clean way to do that without being a judge of other people's character. And I think if they behave poorly in their duties or egregiously in their duties or in completely disrespect of their duties, that is a different matter. But, you know, it's like, well, I think, you know, let's say somebody joins some hideous organization, like some, you know, white supremacy organization, and they are also a member of some board. We don't have the right, I don't think, even though I would be appalled and horrified, I still don't think it's our business to say, well, you join that other organization as part of your, you know, what you do in your free time, and we're going to judge you because we don't like that organization. Much as we hate it, that's completely against the whole idea of freedom of speech.
Yeah, I understand. And I have an Asian daughter, and I'm kind of worried about some of the things that are happening to Asians, you know, in this world. So not necessarily my daughter, but if somebody was to say something or do something really heinous to, you know, an Asian woman out here, would you think that that person should still be eligible to be on?
Well, if they committed a crime, obviously not.
I don't know if I don't know what it would take to rise to a crime. You know,
Well, hate, you know, threatening is a crime, actually. It's menacing is a crime. And so is, you know, threatening somebody's life, liberty, or well-being is actually a crime. It's called harassment. It's a crime. So that's a whole different matter if someone commits a crime. But if someone just says something that's super prejudiced and abhorrent, I mean, I'm sure that they would never get on a committee again, because I don't think any city council would allow them to be, because they would never accept them in the future. So they'd be digging their own grave.
Ashley, are you recommending that we add some kind of misconduct language to this?
You already have misconduct language in your council. I'm sorry, each one of the committees has its own rules. So a member of the commission may be removed by city council after hearing for misconduct or the non-performance of duty. So you already have that in there. That's a little bit more of a constraint on when you can remove a member of the board, and the council can certainly decide to remove that constraint and just say that they can be removed by, you know, majority vote of the council at any time. To Bruce's point, and what I was trying to say earlier, you know, if a member of one of your boards and commissions, you know, certainly at their own board of commission said something that would be harassing, discriminatory, you know, create a hostile work environment for employees, that could certainly be grounds for removal for misconduct. You know, if that same member did that at a different public meeting, for instance, if you're a planning commissioner came to your city council meeting and, speaking as a private citizen, you know, said those same things, I think we could still remove that person for misconduct because, you know, whether they're at the planning commission or city council, they still were harassing or discriminatory, you know, of somebody. It's just less clear. So I don't necessarily have an opinion here. It is completely at the city council's choice whether or not you want to remove that constraint.
Is that language consistent among all the boards and committees and commissions?
Let me check.
If so, it seems like we should
Yes.
just incorporate that language into 4.4.
So the attendance is, you're given 3 times in a year.
What does unexcused mean? Does it mean you didn't say you didn't inform anyone that you weren't coming or that you were ill or you were on vacation?
But I understand it to be,
You didn't bother saying anything. You just didn't show up.
yeah.
And then
What I-
everything else is excused.
That's what I understand. Ashley would have to, but that's what I understand. At least, at least tell somebody you're not going to be
Right.
there. Yeah.
So Ashley, is that your interpretation of excused and unexcused?
She's already
Oh, I'm
working on the last
Sorry.
question.
Just for too many questions.
Keep throwing questions in.
Bruce, is it okay if we keep throwing questions?
So while we're waiting for Ashley, Anita brought something up that was interesting. We really need to get some training for the committees to talk about what it is they're expected to do and what the ordinance is that covers their committee and what that means. And I don't know how we actually get that get it started, get that kind of training started for the committees.
We've done that in the past. I think it's a good one that possibly we have both Ashley and Bill at one meeting so that they can kind of go through the code where everybody's responsibilities and things come in, and then see if there's any conflicts in their interpretations.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, agreed.
Looks like Ashley has an answer.
Yeah, so the question was what constitutes an approved absence? Is that that's what we are
Yes.
asking?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no guidance in either the council rules or under the code. My interpretation is that just unapproved, like you failed to call and check in with the chair and say, I'm not going to be there. You just stop showing up for the meetings.
Okay.
I think that's sort of what we're looking at. If somebody is routinely calling and saying, I'm not showing up for the meetings, that's not an automatic after 3 removal, but you could look at that as misconduct. If they're really not attending well enough to be able to participate, you can remove. It's just not automatic.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I just think three is very generous.
That's what I
That's too generous.
Yeah.
Because because not letting anybody know, just not showing up well, not only is it disrespectful, but it also puts the city in a very weird position when they have people who are applicants showing up with the expectation that their application is going to be addressed and there's no quorum. So I think that 3 is too, it doesn't take a lot of effort to make a phone call. Yeah.
I think the other question we had too regarding committee members was how many times they can be on Zoom versus in person. We had that, we've had a discussion about that too, about
Well, I think we just talked about encouraging people to be in person, but I didn't think we made it a numerical,
no, we haven't gotten that far, but
and some people live out of town.
be in person instead of on Zoom unless they're traveling or sick.
People live out of town, who are on the planning commission. I mean, so I don't know.
That's the difference between the city council and the
Right.
commission members. There isn't a stipulation that you have to live in town to
Exactly.
be on the other boards and committees.
Right. I know, but it's those who are in town. And there have been times where the committee members who don't live in town do come to the meetings in person. So it's just seems to me that we're losing a lot of the in-person contact that we need. I think the meeting goes a lot differently if people are there in person than they are if they're zooming in from.
I think starting with encouraging would be a good way to start, just encouraging people. I mean, telling them outright, we'd really prefer you came in person unless it's impossible. Or if you're ill, of course, we certainly don't want you coming in person, but, and then I think that maybe that'll change the behavior. Because it's very easy to go on Zoom, and to think, I'm not gonna make the trip.
It really affects the meeting.
No, it does.
It's really hard to lead a meeting when you've got half. and
Yeah.
half.
And City of Seaside's taken this up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have.
They went a little crazy when Seth Morrissey wanted to he said that he proposed that the city councilors that Zoomed could not vote on agenda items.
Oh, that's,
I
No,
thought,
that was
you
that-
gotta be kidding me.
Actually, back in the day when, before COVID, and there was people that would call in. They didn't, in Florida, they didn't necessarily count towards the quorum.
Well, that's
And-
Florida.
Yeah, well, and they, you know, how messed up they are.
Yeah.
Well, look what they can produce.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's a lot of things changed in COVID. That it was, things became a right, you know, like I don't have to go to a meeting. We never had Zoom.
Well, I think what we should do as part of the recovery process, I think, is encourage all of our committees, boards, commissions, and council to attend in person as much as possible,
Yeah,
and maybe address this again in another year.
if it doesn't change.
Right.
Are we still considering revising 4.4? To be consistent with,
I think we should,
To be consistent with what?
with the city code. So
Oh.
put the elaborate
misconduct language,
and the,
uh,
and the app.
non-performance language.
Was there anything else? Absence.
Right, and that's how we got on the topic of the Zoom. You think we should change
No, I was saying,
lower?
I think that two times where you don't even bother to call in is plenty.
Any agreement with that?
I could go along with it. I can go with 2 or 3.
I think,
It's kind of interesting because I don't see it anywhere, but it had always been my understanding the whole time I've been on the city. We were allowed to use absences. Perhaps I'm wrong. I don't know if that was ever language that was just for the council or not.
so Ashley, you said in all of the boards, commissions and committees, it's right now it's 3. Unexcused out or 3
In a year.
in a
It
year.
does, yeah, it does look to be that way, that it's 3. I'm not sure if there's a different requirement for city council. That would be in your city council rules, but I mean, city council is you guys are elected by the public, so removal for city council members is a significantly higher bar. So, you know, I don't think it's an apples to oranges comparison. I mean, we can't remove city councilors for not attending 2 meetings in a year. I can check what exactly it is. But just as a note, if we are changing that requirement, that's actually not in your city council rules, that's in the municipal code. So we need to bring back an ordinance for that.
To change it from 3 to 2, you mean?
Yep.
I'd like us to go that direction. It's the lower. I think we need to have high expectations.
So and just to close the loop on what's the requirement for city council, that's in section 28 of the charter, what creates a vacancy. The office becomes vacancy upon the incumbent's death, adjudicated incompetence, conviction of a felony or crime pertaining to the office, unlawful destruction of public records, resignation, recall from office, ceasing to possess the qualifications or office, failure following election or appointment to the office to qualify. So there is no attendance requirement for city council members.
So we could be gone.
No, that's not-
Not bother calling in.
Hold on a second. Let me
Yeah.
keep reading this. In the case of mayor or council, an office also becomes vacant upon the incumbent's removal of residency from the city, absence from the city for 30 consecutive days without consent of council. I'm sorry, here it is. Or absence for 2 consecutive regular meetings of the council without like consent or upon a declaration by the council of the vacancy. That is very specific city of Cannon Beach language, and Councilor Ogilvie is exactly right. It is 2 consecutive regular council meetings.
That's 2 consecutive, not just 2 meetings in the year, but 2 consecutive meetings.
Without council consent
Right.
So
and
if
upon a
somebody was,
declaration by the council of vacancy.
so if somebody was very, very ill, then that they could get the council could approve their absence while they recover.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Excused.
That is very unusual language for a city council charter. So yes, you guys definitely have a attendance requirement.
Good. Good job, Brenda.
Well, luckily, it seems not to have been a problem. I can think of only one instance recently where Wendy was her first name and she needed to move, but it was difficult for the council to figure out what to do.
Right.
So she phoned in for several meetings.
Right.
For several months, but
Mhm.
it was something that the council worked out and there was a smooth transition.
Right.
Who was that? Dave?
Wendy Higgins.
Huh?
Wendy Higgins.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Remember that.
Right. I'll tell her.
Okay, so we're all okay keeping the city council high standards.
Mhm.
We should probably make the committees the same language if you're talking about changing from 3 to 2.
Right, to 2, right, but not consecutive, just 2 in a calendar year for
Okay,
the committees.
Right.
Anita, do you have something to say on this topic?
I have a question on this topic.
Okay,
Thank you.
on up.
Question. Just as a committee member, would we maybe take, if there is a misconduct or non-performance issue, would you want us to deal with that within the committee first before bringing it to council for a hearing? Or how is council, how would it be presented to council for hearing? Does the chair come before you and say that I have a committee member that has misconduct, whether by witness or record, or has missed a number of meetings? I'm just not quite sure how.
That would be one way, I think.
Yeah, how.
That would be one
help with
way.
knowing that maybe having the committee try to deal with it within themselves. Was guessing that, the volunteers, you don't want to just start writing them off and give them a chance to correct their attendance, behavior, whatever the issue is. So.
First,
I don't know if the committees and boards have the same authority as the council does.
right,
So I don't know what they could do, could they suspend somebody, terminate their membership on the board? I don't know what they could do because they're not written in.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if within a meeting, the board would say, we've noticed so many meetings and we're concerned about your commitment. And at that point, hopefully the committee member would say, oh, I need to start showing up more, or maybe this isn't going to work out, just so that council isn't being bogged down by that all the time. Or if the chair would just decide on their own without talking to the committee about a specific member.
It would seem in most cases, that's how the conversation would start.
Mhm.
Something at the committee level that said, hey, Bruce, you've missed 2 meetings in a row. That somebody can fix whatever. And then if it doesn't feel like there's a resolution, then probably there would be a discussion among the committee saying, let's kick this up to the council. So I think it could be a kind of a mix of what you're talking about.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we ready to move on?
Can I let you know real quick, on the topic of training, we already have an email going with Bruce, with Bill Weisman, Ashley and Gary to get things set up. So when we do have our new director on board, we can set up a training for planning and DRB and with the attorneys. So it's kind of on the pre-work right now. So that way we can do it once it happens.
Yeah, but how long is it going to be before we get a new planning director? I mean, seems like you're talking a good 6 months or more.
Oh, we're hoping.
Hoping to have somebody on before we could possibly set up this meeting we're talking.
Okay, but let's kind of keep at the top of because I really think there's some training that needs to be done right away.
Well, even Bill had suggested possibly waiting until we have the new community development director on board.
Yeah.
So that way everyone has the same training. But we do have phone interviews this week for applicants. So the process is moving forward.
Okay, let's just kind of keep it top of our heads, because if it starts getting too long process, then we might have to,
So in the next couple of months, if we
Yeah.
don't have
yeah, because
a hire, we need to do the
I think
training.
we really in a.
But we would recommend that the training happen. Because we've got, I mean, we have a lot of new,
A lot and somewhat inexperienced in some cases.
yeah, and we want them, we want to give them the tools to do their job right also.
So where are we then? I don't understand. So are we going to change? Is the council going to decide if someone behaves badly outside of a meeting that they have the ability to remove them or not?
I agree with what you were saying. I don't think that's really. It depends, if a crime has been committed, then that's
Sure.
something we discuss, but outs. We can't be the police,
Language is misconduct,
yeah,
Right.
we don't,
and I would take that to mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Nancy.
well, misconduct has a huge definition, I think.
Well, I
Different for
think
different
what I'd
people.
like to say is that I think that the misconduct would have to be something that happened with the committee person while they were doing their job.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to put moral turpitude in there somewhere, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody okay?
Is Ashley okay?
Yeah, I just, I thought I heard a discussion that the council would make a decision about whether somebody is, fit to be a board of commissioner member outside a public meeting. I don't know if I heard that correctly, but definitely that's a decision that is made during a public meeting. And I took my hand down because I was going to be just reiterating exactly what Bruce and Councilor Kerr said, which is that it is ultimately the city council's decision. Members of the board, could make a recommendation to the council to remove somebody, but that's not the only way the council can go about, having a hearing and making a decision that somebody should not be a member of one of the boards.
Okay,
And the current reading of removal of members at the board, committee and commission level. How does it cover activities not related to their job?
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I'm not sure I followed that question.
The language about removal
Mhm.
of board, committee members, commission members, with the current language that I think what in words misconduct and non-performance of duty, this concern that we're having about conduct outside of the role on the board or commission,
Mhm.
how does that have effect on our language?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It is ultimately the city council who determines what misconduct means under these circumstances. What I would say is, when that appears in the employment context, what I would be looking for is some sort of action that impacts their ability to perform, their volunteer function. So misconduct can happen outside their role as, a member of the arts commission. But, if I was going to strictly read that provision, that misconduct has to impact their ability to be a member of that board. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it can't be like they were caught. I mean, they got a DUI. Yes, that is misconduct, but, does it really impact their ability to be a member of the board? I think that's a little bit of a stretch. If it was the Public Safety Commission, maybe you could have an argument that getting a DUI, impacts your ability to perform your volunteer function as a member of the Public Safety Board. But ultimately, that's going to be the city council's decision, what constitutes misconduct.
I'd love to see that language in there.
Majority.
I'd love to see that language in there, the few words you added that impacts their ability to perform their duties. I think that makes it that draws the line between just somebody doing something that you found totally distasteful outside of the meeting and the ability to actually do their job. Can that language be added?
It certainly can. But again, it adds a restriction it adds a restriction to the city council's authority here. So that would, the majority of the city council would need to vote on that.
Yeah, I understand that.
I guess my perspective on this is that more flexibility for the council is likely better. And so we have misconduct there. And, yes, it definitely incorporates anything that directly relates to the performance of, their volunteer job. But there's just a lot of situations out there that maybe flexibility in deciding who can remain on those board and commissions, is a good idea for the city council, having flexibility in making that decision.
And when we're deliberating that,
Well, of course, that's when the issue would come up again.
Right.
I know. It's just a little bit Stepford Wives for me.
Well, ultimately, they serve at the city council's pleasure. So, I mean, you select them, based on what you know of them in the community, whether you think they're going to, advise you in a good way. Like you're selecting them based on, essentially who they are and how they've applied. And there could be a variety of reasons why the city council rethinks that decision. You wouldn't necessarily select somebody to be appointed to one of the boards that came to the meetings and came to your council meetings and is really disruptive and, says things that are, incendiary or divisive in the community. You might say like, this person, how they've reported themselves at city council meetings in the past doesn't lend me to believe that they're going to be a great member of this board and commission. What if that sort of behavior develops while they're a part of the board and commission, and you want to be able to say, maybe this person isn't representing us how we want to be represented. Maybe they aren't giving us the type of advice that we want, or, because of this behavior, we don't trust that they're going to be able to do that in the future. This language gives you a little bit more flexibility to do that.
I understand. I understand your point of view. I do.
I think I prefer the flexibility. I think if we're a council of good judgment, we consider whether or not it impacts their ability to do the
I'll
job.
ask those questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you okay?
Mhm.
Okay. Moving on. Correct? Okay, so the next, number 2 on our list is the scarcity of employees. Bruce, are you going to be scarce?
You'd like to be-
Starting to look pretty good. No, I think that some of the actions that have been taken by council for the past 2 years, for example, we had a contract that said it was 2% for the COLAs. And the cost of living was actually up maybe 8% or more. In both cases, the city unilaterally went to the unions and said, we think the number should be 5 now. And that was appreciated in both cases. The other thing is we're working on a program right now where our employees would have a chance to price themselves out of the market. And by that, I mean, we'll pay for certain certification. And we had it before, but it was kind of like, if you pass this test for certification for wastewater, we will give you 3.5%, but that was it. Only now we're looking at an ongoing 5% for each one of the certifications. And I spoke to you, maybe the last time we had this meeting, was that wastewater 3s are they're the ones that can sign the reports and things. And, we have a 3 and other people are calling R3 and, all that kind of stuff. But because he has 3 certifications, he would be 15% higher now. And the others would not be able to necessarily afford him. Plus, you know, we've had some conversations and the employees are very favorable to this. The ones that are not necessarily in, and this tends to be more public works oriented, this particular program. But we're also talking about commercial driver's licenses. And CDLs have some strong requirements, random drug testing, all these other things. And we have, I think, one or two folks with a CDL license. We have equipment that can't be operated by anybody but those couple of individuals. And so that would also be another 5%. That if somebody, you know, didn't have the other licenses, but got the CDL, that they would be 5% over what anybody else would be, you know, in the county. So we're trying to stay with let's take the best care we can of people and have the ones stay rather than try to recruit somebody as good in the future. So that seems to be working. In looking at Jeff's situation, the position that he just vacated. We're not, you know, we're going to pay a lot of money for whoever that person is, especially if they're from out of town. And some places have lots of planners here that came to work, couldn't find a place and left. So we're trying to deal with it that way. And then also we try to deal with our employees in a fair way. And, you know, everybody gets out and spends time with each other, that sort of thing. I think that those kind of things can help. So the way we're dealing with it is to try to get our employees the best trained, best paid. And as far as the other jobs, it's looking at the market, but then being enough over the market that it's a little bit of a reach for somebody else to try to steal them.
I remember we on the agenda because we had the conversation was about how few applicants were available for some of these jobs, for instance, the planning director, and other various job, building official was another one. So that there were so few applicants out there even applying for the job. And now we're having to, you know, the cities are having to share employees in some cases, the building official being one of them. So I guess my question is, why are there so few people applying for jobs?
I think that is the big question for an awful lot of people. I know one of the cost of housing here, it's like, you know, it's unless you're going to be up in the upper end of, you know, management or something, it's unlikely you're going to be able to find a place, although it is possible to do. But somebody could find something like that. But to your point, I think that we advertised nationwide and did a big splash about, you know, who we are and all that kind of stuff. And we ended up with 4 applications so far. Three applications so far.
And it's been listed for how long? I mean, just roughly. Okay.
Yeah, because I had it out for a couple of weeks before we said we do our first round, and we were even a week late doing the first round.
And in a position like this, I will ask others to help us recruit. You know, if there's somebody that is doing the job here locally, you know, you've had friends, you've been in this business for a long time. Is there anybody you can think of that maybe we could reach out to, or you could reach out to try to do the trying to find people? But I think that's the approach that we're taking. I can't say I'm comfortable with it because it has a lot of issues in other kind of aspects. So.
What are you uncomfortable with?
That somebody could still come along and you know, pay more than what we pay to be able to recruit one of ours. But I think that I don't think money would necessarily be the thing that makes that happen. I think it's dissatisfaction with the job kind of makes that easier to happen. And so we're trying to make sure job satisfaction stays up.
So if we only received 3 applications from a nationwide search, are you saying it's because of the cost of living here?
No, I think, I don't know why we would have received so few. Usually people research the community. And maybe that came up as far as the, cost of housing, that kind of thing.
I mean, we have
Yeah.
the Cannon Beach itself has a wonderful reputation.
Sure,
A beautiful city and a wonderful
Sure.
place to live.
Yeah.
So why only 3? I mean, is this the case nationwide, or are other communities having trouble finding planning directors and
Yeah.
and city managers
Yeah,
and
Barbara's shaking
Official.
her head. She's
Yeah.
researched it.
we don't know.
And it isn't just the city of Cannon Beach that's having a hard time finding employees, it's
We don't know why.
I think people got comfortable not working, is my personal opinion.
Okay.
And I think that's something that we better recover quickly, is get people back working and.
I think discovering you can work from home makes it pretty easy to say, well, if I stay here, I'm not paid quite as much as that. I never have to leave. So I think that that's a disincentive also. But we're doing okay. And working on filling the community development director position, if we can.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question about that. I'm curious because I remember a while back, I asked you if the council will have any input into the hiring of a city planner, and was told no, basically. We could say what we wanted, but that we really don't. And I keep trying to find out historically. I keep asking different people who've, been here for long periods of time and trying to find out what the protocol used to be. And I've heard, someone say that there was a committee at one time that didn't make the final say, but reviewed the applications. And I've heard just all different things. And I don't know the answer to it, what was done, because I've heard so many different versions of what the protocols were in the past and why it's changed to what it is now. And I'm just curious if you have any knowledge of that, or when did that happen, or when did that become solely your decision and we don't have any input?
I don't know of, I think I heard of one time, maybe 1 or 2 people back, that there was a committee that hired the planning person.
Oh, okay.
But mine is, I'm following the charter and the code, and that it's my responsibility. And I can see, when I look at some of the applicants that we have, there is probably one applicant that would make folks very happy because of the particular skill that he has. But I'm very concerned because of all the skills he doesn't have. And, in this case, it's somebody that is really good at housing. That's not our top priority. It's not the top thing that we're working in the department. And so are you going to have somebody that's going to learn that on the job or not? And so I'm looking at it from the package, like, how am I going to deliver you into the residents? So I'm afraid that, if it comes down to a 3-2 between you and one of the 3-2 is not necessarily the person I think is the best person, it creates a situation that somebody's going to come in, kind of behind the 8 ball. So that's why I'm doing it. Again, I'm hoping with the record that we've had, it's been, lucky or pretty good or whatever, but we have a very strong team. And that's how I look at the position.
Well, if we were to just share with you, through an email or whatever,
Mhm.
certain qualities that we would like, or certain strengths that
Sure.
we would think would be valuable.
Mhm.
Just speaking individually, I can't speak for the council, obviously. Would that influence your decision at all?
It might, yeah, in that you might suggest something that I have not thought of as far as being a priority. and then it'll trigger something and say, okay, well, yes, I'm gonna go ahead and look at that. I don't know if it would, but yes, that would help. But I don't want it to get into a debate with folks about who should come in. I mean, I will pick a person and I will back that person 100% and give them all the best advice and everything else that I can to succeed.
How would you feel about a scenario where you had, you know, you made the choice of who to interview and then you had two finalists and you had it like a meet and greet with those two finalists? How would you feel about
What would be the result of the meet and greet?
just for the council or the community to, I mean, you would still have the ultimate decision, but it would be a chance to meet the candidates.
Right now, there are not two people I would recommend. So there's not a first and a second.
But in another situation, let's say we had 25 people that applied for the position, you picked the top 5, you interviewed, and then you came up with a couple of finalists. How would you feel about some type of meet and greet in that scenario?
I love the meet and greet, but I would do it after the decision was made. I am concerned with the original thing I said, if I bring 3 people and there's 3 people, y'all don't agree. And then the one that maybe got 3 of the other 2 got 1 each. It might have been my third choice as opposed to my first or second. I'm just looking at it, it's my responsibility. I don't think I'm doing a bad job pulling together the staff. So I'm not sure what value we're getting by having it done by a committee. Now, I do work with a committee, and it's for the hiring of this position. Jen, it's Robert, Karen.
Oh, interviews, yes.
Yeah, so that's who I'll be working with.
Robert who and Karen?
Robert and Karen and
Planning,
myself.
planning assistant or planning.
No, I know Robert, but
Yeah.
I thought you said 3 people.
And me.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, we assume, I mean, I like having more than one person.
Oh, yeah, no, there is. There's somebody that goes through and reviews who are going to talk to. And then there's a discussion about, you know, who's the top candidate and why. So it's not done in a vacuum.
Yeah, I think bottom line here is this is the city manager's job. And different city managers may have looked at the process in their own way. In this case, in Bruce's process. And if we don't like what Bruce does, well, then we have a problem, but.
I really,
It's his job.
I take issue with it being an either or like that. Either, you know, we either go along with the idea that Bruce makes, you know, the decision all by himself, or we don't like Bruce's process, because that's not fair. It's just this one particular thing that I'm concerned about. I'm really concerned about who our next planning director is, because I think it will influence the whole tone of the code audit. It will influence the protections of our environment. It'll influence housing issues, all of those things. And so I'm not saying I don't, you know, I hate it being a setup where it's sort of like, well, I don't approve of Bruce if I don't approve of this. That's not true. And it's not either or at all. I'm not saying this is any kind of criticism of Bruce or second guessing him or doubting him. I'm just saying this to me is an incredibly important position, second to Bruce's.
And it might be appropriate for us to be able to express ourselves about what we.
That's
see
all I'm
in that.
saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. In fact, it probably wouldn't be a bad agenda item. To actually have that discussion and then let Bruce do his job.
I think that the list that y'all put together would be the same as my list.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question about the other positions that are open, food, farmer's market manager, what's happening there?
We have till, is it March 26th for the first review?
Yeah, I believe.
You have two
so.
applicants.
Yeah, and I have received 3 applications. So
I was aware too.
Okay. And then the Andrew's position?
That'll be filled by Kelly.
And she's already has it posted and I believe she was working on interviews.
Yeah.
She said that last week, yeah.
Is he still going to be working at all with the city?
Some. But he was working for HVAC when we asked him to do the bulletin. And they're going to hire somebody with a similar skill set. And he said we'd be happy to let that person, work on the bulletin. So there's not a whole lot left for Andrew, but if he can do some writing for us or something, we would probably ask him to do that. But it'll depend on the workload of the person in HRAP.
And is he still working for the city or is he going?
He is still listed as an employee.
All right. And farmer's market in terms of where we are on the organization of that for this year, do we know where we are on that?
For the organization,
In other words, have the vendors been gathered and contacted and so forth?
yeah, Philomena had already done a lot of that work. And I met with the board. And we talked about the new position.
And is Philomena finished here?
Philomena is not quite finished. She wanted to retire. But she knows she won't leave us, without somebody and without doing training and that sort of thing. But we're still a little bit of time before we actually, kick off the market.
Not a lot. It's gonna go fast.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Problem solved. Okay, so next we have counselor, city staff communication request to go through Bruce. And I kind of think we've covered that.
I think we did, and my recommendation is that it does go through me because then when we get an answer, everybody gets copied on it. But I know that Ashley had a little bit, it was a different take. Do you want to go over that again, Ashley?
Sure.
You and I- Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it last time. There's the legal concern and then there's just sort of the management and policy concern. So Bruce, do you sort of want to go over your perspective and then I'll give my 2 cents?
No, well, I just did mine. If they send a request or something through me, then I will make sure that everybody gets it when it goes out. And I will also acknowledge the person.
Yeah, it really does help to
Yeah.
know.
Sure. Just-
More than just Nancy. You
No, I know.
I'll-
What I'll do is I'll acknowledge, like if Nancy sends me something and say, Nancy asked me this and y'all will get it. And then when we get our answer, everybody will get it.
That we avoid the problem of having an off, a separate meeting by us all writing to each other.
No, I had no concerns with that.
What's that?
She has no concerns with what I just said. Okay, thank you, Ashley.
So we've got all that covered. Agreed?
Mhm.
That was easy.
Hey, I'm moving right along.
Excellent.
Yeah, okay, so next we have the elementary school management.
There are a lot of things going on with that elementary school right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that we need to just take a breather, as my friend Jan would say. We need to take a breather on that and let's go ahead and figure out what we're going to do. Because to me, the management all comes down to what do we want to do there? I mean, if we want to have great big complex events, that's one group to manage. If it's going to be like, just the gym and art classes or something, it's a whole different thing. So I never have gotten anybody to tell me that's what we want to do. And that's not a surprise because we're still so far away. but that's going to drive what the management is going to do. So my, especially with the meeting we have coming up, and I know that won't be resolved in a single meeting with what's coming up, that that one we just kind of put on the back burner until we decide how we're going to go forward.
What on the back burner?
The management of the Cannon Beach Elementary,
Until we figure out the funding.
up until the funding to see what, you know, we're going forward, what are we going forward with? But also, what are we going to do? Until we know what's going to be left, if we're going to be, you know, doing any deletions or anything from the project. That's going to be one thing, but until y'all can give me a pretty strong indication of what it is you want done. I mean, if we're going to allow people to use the rooms, if the room is available, that's one thing. If we're going to have scheduling and collection of fees and, you know, all that, that's going to be another level of sophistication. Same thing with the gym, whatever, what we're going to do. Can anybody come in anytime if there's not something else there and start playing pickleball and basketball and shooting at each other? I don't know. So we really have some time on that. But again, until I know what you want us to do, me trying to help resolve the management situation is kind of premature, I think.
And when are we going to have that conversation?
We'll be having a lot of it starting on March 28th. Because as we start talking about, okay, what might we delete? What might we want to save? Those kind of things. Then there's going to be an entity that's left over. And then we can start having those kind of conversations. Like, I think that there's a piece that I still haven't figured out yet, but there really needs to be an ongoing presence of the truck. And that there needs to be things that are changed and that I wouldn't say like as an employee or as a manager of the facility. But we don't want whatever's in there to be stagnant. So there's that part, which is like a volunteer part that we have running the facility.
But you're envisioning, we would have a full-time manager
Oh, absolutely,
at that location.
absolutely. And some staff, most likely part-time that would come and go depending on, do we have to set up
Events.
or not, that kind of thing. And yeah, and some stuff, you know, while I tried to think out, for example, if there's a big food event, then whatever, if there's a charge for the facility, on top of that charge, you know, it is cleanup. We have the money from your thing to go ahead and do the cleanup. We can make an arrangement with somebody to come in, clean the kitchen the way it should be cleaned, all those kind of things. And so that would all be done by fees, but it wouldn't be done by employees. It would be done by contract.
The maintenance of the,
No, the cleaning and maintenance of the kitchen.
Right.
So that if somebody was going to get it, we're not going to rely, you don't have to worry about how much they clean the knives when you come in if you're the next renter.
right, right.
And that should be, in that particular facility should be pretty much locked down unless somebody's using it. If not, I'm going to go in and get a drink of water.
Right.
Or see what's in the fridge.
Or fry an egg.
Yeah. Just leave the pan, somebody will get it.
I guess I'm confused, not unusual anymore. You want to put the discussion of the management of the facility on the back burner, is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Until we know what the facility is going to be.
But to me, it seems to me that that goes hand in hand, what it's going to be and how it's going to be managed. It goes hand in hand because we have to know what it's going to be and before we can actually say what kinds of things we cannot, what kind of areas, parts of the center, if we have to postpone anything, we can postpone. So we have to know what it's going to do and how it's going to be managed to be able to kind of figure out our budget on this, even this construction budget. So I don't understand how we can put that on the back burner.
But if we don't know if we're going to even have classrooms at first, or a gym at first, or, a pavilion at first, or even a kitchen.
Well, that's why
We
we,
don't know what so how are we gonna even,
that's what we need to discuss is what is it we want to have? What kind of activities do we want there first? So we know what we want to construct first, so we know how, and then we have to figure out how we're going to manage
Right.
those activities. So that it all goes in, it all fits together in one piece. So that we can kind of move forward on all of those pieces. We can't just say, we're gonna construct the gym and then later on say, okay, this is how we're gonna manage it. We have to integrate.
I kind of think that's what he was saying.
Would not hurt us to have the conversation
Concurrently.
Yeah, I think so.
now. I think it will partly guide us in that, as Nancy's saying. But if there's I think we all have in our minds what the facility will be.
Right.
And we should probably start that conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think you need to have that in your minds in order to do the process is going to start on the 28th.
yeah, but you're saying put it on the back burner. And to me, when you say that, it sounds like we're having that discussion 6 months from now.
No, not necessarily 6 months, but I've been asking for months. Tell me what you want to do. And never,
Well, then that's why we need to have the discussion.
okay, but
Should we have it now? I mean,
we could,
there's a whole lot involved in the management. It's like, okay, how are we gonna pay for it?
Yeah.
It is a big one.
But we have to know what it is we're paying for and when we're paying for it.
Yeah,
And you talk about charging people fees. I'm just assuming that if it's somebody from the outside coming in to do an event, of course, we're gonna charge them fees.
Yeah. I'm talking about locals. Somebody wants to have to bring a bunch of friends in to play bridge. Should you charge them for that? I would prefer not to, so that we get people coming in. It'd have to be a scheduling issue. If somebody wants to walk through or bring a classroom through, I wouldn't charge. I wouldn't necessarily charge for somebody to come in and shoot baskets. So much stuff done. If it's going to be an event, then I think then everything changes.
Right.
But as
And
far as just like the
I think-
usual,
I think we all agree with that, right?
right, right. But
Brandon?
that's what that's what I'm talking about. To make it no cost for the smaller stuff that's going on. And then events, there would be a charge, and then there would be management responsibilities depending on how or what the event is.
I'm not sure about no cost, but I certainly think if it's a local organization
Nominal
that
cost,
there
yeah.
should be certainly a large reduced rate.
To play bridge in one of the classrooms, they should have to pay. A
Well-
bridge club or a garden club
I
or,
think everything's on the table right now when it comes to funding. I mean,
yeah, I know that, but I mean, for something like garden club, who's been able to meet without, there's a $10 dues for the year to belong to the garden club. So now that wouldn't even cover the cost of every meeting coming. I don't know. I just sort of think,
but see, this is the discussion we need to be having.
And one of the reasons for me, from a management standpoint, the amount of money we're going to charge to rent those rooms or something is going to be insignificant at the end of the year. And it's a pain in the butt to go ahead and do that. And that's where you get into all your troubles with the financial, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to make it as easy as possible for people that have been waiting for this facility for a long time. Unless we're going to charge something significant, and then I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
I think we should probably look a lot more at the tourism uses
Sure.
of the facility than our conversation about
The bridge.
local clubs and people who want to run in and play basketball as
Yeah.
members of the community or play pickleball.
Yeah.
I think those are all things that are certainly outside of where the funding is coming from.
Yeah.
So
I think if we advertised it, I don't know if we want to call it the Bridge Club, but just say, open bridge from 2 to 5 on Thursdays. And tourists can come in. If they find out they got a chance to go play bridge someplace, we'll fill all 3 classrooms. Probably fill the gym.
Yeah,
It's the only place I've ever been that doesn't have a bridge club.
And I thought we had a bridge club that played at Pelavana Hall.
There may be, I just,
And the
where,
yeah, I thought we did too.
And the lead,
okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, I don't know if it's a club, but I know that there's.
Yeah.
I think it's this discussion, actually, that discussion is months away. I think the discussion we need to have now is the overall events and what we're going to have and how they're going to fit into whatever we're going to keep in the design and start working on now and how we're going to fund it. So I think.
Are we gonna have weddings there? That's a big question that we've had. Do we want it to be that kind of thing?
And
Are we going
if
for
so what facility part of that would go to weddings? Yeah.
corporate retreat kinds of things or, I don't know, if Pelavana Arts Colony, whether they have a need for more space than.
Sometimes they do.
Have.
Yeah, sometimes they do.
Comedy Festival was good too, by the way.
Right.
So I don't, my vision has never been to have it be a wedding venue. I'm thinking education, corporate retreats, those kinds of things. I do not see, I don't want a wedding reception, a crazy wild wedding reception
The
there.
park might lend itself, people might want to use the Nakus Park for a wedding.
And then if they're doing that though, then the public can't use the park. I mean, you know what I mean? I didn't envision weddings either at all.
But I think that's a question
Yeah,
we're gonna have to decide and have a policy for if we don't want weddings and we need to put that in the policy. So we actually need to get started working on that kind of question, I think, just so we know what facilities we're going to be focusing on. What part of that facility we're going to be focusing on for funding, if we can't do the whole thing at all at once. And we haven't decided that yet.
Right.
I mean, we have so many decisions to make on that.
well, I see as a place for music concerts, definitely. We have the park right now, but if the weather's at all rainy, then you can't really have it there. No one wants to sit in the wet grass.
And
So-
so when the school was operational, that was the
Right.
rainy day concert place.
And-
And that's, yeah.
I know, and I've heard people talk about the old school and how there would be an annual Christmas party there, celebration or annual other holidays that were for the community. And I think that that's really important, that those functions still stay in operation for the community. And then in order to make money, which we have to do, things like the yoga festival, for example, that where you're bringing in all these people from even other states, something like that that's a great venue for something like that. Or, I don't mean conventions, but retreats, corporate retreats. Just because the word corporate is in there doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
It would be small, thing,
Right. Yep.
maybe 25 people or something.
But a
Yeah.
lot of our tourism and arts funded events struggle with a space.
Right.
So
Right.
it's for that kind of thing,
Mhm.
festivals.
Yeah, there's no place to have it and they start scrounging around for places to have it. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking of, but I was never thinking of weddings either. Because that's such a dominating force when you have a wedding in there. It's a huge blowout usually. And
The other thing is, unless we charge an awful lot, we will be the venue of choice. Because, I know how much it costs to have weddings in all these places. And I couldn't see us charging something like that, but if we didn't, we'd be direct.
Inundated.
Yeah, but we'd be also direct competition with people that are generating the funds to go ahead and pay for the facility.
Right.
Well, and maybe we should do weddings and charge an awful lot.
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
I'm not quite, I mean, I'm not sure what the hesitation on weddings is, whether it's management or we think it's weddings and it's gonna be trash.
I think we'd have weddings there a lot. And then and they're usually on weekends. And then the facility would not be available at all to the community.
it would go outside too. It's easy.
Oh, yeah.
That to me is a big concern.
Of course they'd go out, so they'd
It's a nice
probably
day.
set up a little thing by the water.
Park.
Gonna have the covers too.
Yeah, right. Who wouldn't?
Right.
You know,
Well, weddings would be typically bringing in people that would be fulfilling the whole tourism.
And we have, I think,
Funding.
I thought of 12 weddings a year,
What's that?
12 weddings a year. But that would give us a bunch of money to run this place. But it's only one a month, it's one a month. And,
I'm not,
but just,
I'm not sure we should take it off the table. I think we should.
well, then you have a wedding venue and you don't have a community center. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you open it up to all weddings, but the 12 a year isn't such a bad idea.
it's one a month.
I mean, yeah,
And
What if you didn't have them during the summer? This is a fine venue for winter, fall and spring weddings
it could be.
and still limit it.
But yes, if we're gonna talk about management and how to pay for management, I think that having those kinds of. And I think we need to put that. Ahead of. The Bridge Club,
oh,
sorry,
see,
Bridge Club.
I don't. To me, a local club or a local organization shouldn't. I mean,
They don't use the same space.
yeah, they would use the classroom.
Probably a bad example that will get me in trouble, but I think, again, the idea is it's a tourism project. Funded with tourism dollars.
And that's
And
why
we
you're
need to
saying.
fulfill that mission.
Right.
And stop talking about it as a community center. I mean, I refer to it as a cultural and event center.
Yeah. I think that, in terms of weddings, what I would think is if your wedding is 25, 30 people, you can use one of the classrooms. And if you want to go outside to go ahead and do the ceremony, you can come back in or whatever, or rent 2 classrooms, something along those lines, but limit on the number of people that would be involved with it so that we could do something and keep them down at the west side. That sort of thing. There's a lot, pardon?
I just knowing when every time there's a wedding at the chamber,
Yeah,
it's, for one thing, it's usually a night event.
yeah.
And so if you wanted to have weddings, in all likelihood, that's what you're dealing with. And the previous council, we had a discussion that we weren't necessarily deciding on having it as an evening event space. That was never worked out.
But we do have plans to affect the acoustics in the gym for like speaking engagements and for music, that sort of thing.
I don't know.
Having events in the evening. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. I am
Just a
opposed
wedding?
to having problems with noise ordinances because there's people outside creating a disturbance. As Bruce alluded to have them all down on one end. There's houses right next door. And that's something I'd like to avoid.
Definitely consideration.
That'd be something more for the for daytime events. If we were going to do it, I mean, this is the problem with trying to go ahead and solve all these things now.
I'm not sure it's a daytime, nighttime thing, but not a big party. With music spilling out
Right.
into the neighborhood, I think is a valid concern.
I mean, it's just the kind of thing that's rather difficult to control, especially when liquor's involved. And a large group of people.
But I mean, there are the opportunity for evening concerts and again, some of the festivals.
Sure, and I'm actually, it's one of those that are in my mind two completely different things. And I'm just trying to voice my concerns about managing.
Mhm. Yeah. All fair points.
Yep.
Well, I think it's really important for us to remember how it's being funded. And the fact that it has to, the priority has to be for cultural. Educational events that attract. The right kind of tourists.
Mhm.
But I also want to be able to have some of those traditional community things that we haven't been able to have. Because we don't have a school there.
We need 51% of the events to
Right.
come from somewhere else.
Mhm.
So that's a pretty easy metric to.
Yep,
We should be so lucky to have it so busy that that we wouldn't be able to do those community things, but you know, that's really not that realistic in my opinion, but
And I wouldn't see us trying to pursue a whole lot in the first year. Let's run it for a year,
oh, yeah.
have it be a walkthrough place, you know, maybe like in the shoulder season, you know, concert. Every once in a while, evening in the gym. Local clubs, that sort of thing. And then if, because it's kind of ironic that where your costs go up is when you're doing money events. Someplace it's something you're getting paid for. If you just keep it, you know, sweep the floor and, you know, that kind of thing, our costs should not be that high. So if we do it more as a passive sort of a, environment, I think that for the first year, that would probably be good just to see what happens, what kind of requests are made, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I think you're gonna get, if it was going to be primarily a place for outside, for touristic own, you know, and doesn't have a strong community component, why in the world would we even want it? Why would the community even want to do it? Because they're not looking to bring more tourists in and they're not looking to, you know, so there has to be something in it for the community itself, other than just, you know, generating money for when the cost of the facility itself is so high. You know, I mean, outside of paying for the facility, why even bother doing it if it's not going to be something to the benefit of the community?
I think it is something for the benefit of the community and it will be. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why the two can't coexist
Well,
and we actually get the benefit as a local community to do some of those things, all funded with tourism dollars.
right. That's why I'm saying that I think there should be priority for local organizations to use the, you know, classrooms, et cetera. If, you know, if the garden club wants to use it every one Wednesday a month, that should be blocked on the calendar as a time for them to use the facility, period.
Anybody here with Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association? I think we have to be really careful about that.
No, I think we do too. I mean, I understand that part, but it's substantially for the, for tourism. So if we do something that goes ahead and blocks off, you know, for a local group, if the other two classrooms are available, and
Yeah.
the gym is available, I don't think that would be a problem, but
No,
I
what
do-
makes me nervous is the priority ought to be local events. We're skirting the edge of the law on
yeah,
that one.
okay, I got you.
Ashley, did you want to say something?
Nope, I'm just ready.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like my voice is known in this one. And, you know, I can answer any specific questions that the council has.
How are we doing so far?
So where do we go on this?
I think we go to March 28th. I don't know if we can. I think we got a lot of things out now myself. But I really want to get. We try to solve what's next, and I think the next is the funding.
I completely agree. I will voice my opinion because it's not what yours is, Nancy. I don't have any problem trying to sort out how we're going to finance and then the ultimate construction of it, and then pursuing the management aspect of it.
I just think it
That
needs to
doesn't-
go together.
I can understand your opinion. I don't share it.
And I think it needs to go slightly behind, but just slightly, not 6 months, you know.
I'm a builder and that's my bias going through.
Well, I totally understand. I mean, I think it just needs to, you know, if you're gonna, I mean, we have to know overall how we're gonna fund this whole project.
I think
And then
it's
we have to
important.
start taking pieces and saying, we can get it this way, we can get it that way, or we're gonna fund this for now, and we're not gonna fund it. If we are gonna fund this, what are we putting in it? You know, what kind of activity do we see for it? So it's putting the jigsaw puzzle together and then taking it apart.
But
So
first
just
we have to have
conversation.
First, we have to have the corner pieces.
Yeah, right.
That's what we're gonna discuss
Exactly right.
on the 28th.
Yeah.
And then we start.
Yeah.
With, I hope, a lot of community showing up. Because, you know, well, at Coffee with the Counselors today, there was tons of questions about it. So I would like those, I hope those people show up and make, you know, make their opinions known.
You know,
They won't just come back later, you know, a month later and say, oh, we don't like this, and never set anything up until then. So that to me is really important, that people speak out now when we're planning.
it may be worthwhile going back and looking at the surveys that were done at the very, very beginning of this conversation. When we were looking at what we might do with the school before thinking we bought it, maybe we just bought it. And we had a lot of community surveys, and those surveys were, what do you want to see us use the school for? And kind of take it back, go back and look at what those responses were. That
Sure.
might help a little.
Yeah, Ken, can you send that around again?
The original one?
Yeah,
Yeah, the very first ones.
So yeah, I can find those.
yes, if you could, that'd be great.
I think it's on the.
But we also need to keep in mind. Back in in the early days, my recollection, which, you know, could be completely wrong, was that it wasn't. The funding source, I don't think. Was yet.
No, it wasn't set yet. We had that was before the county election.
Right, so we need to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Nor does all that input, do they have the knowledge of
Right,
how the tourism funds can be
Right,
used? So
right.
I.
Yeah.
Yeah,
um,
that doesn't, has to be considered.
I think that, like, as everybody's saying, that was done before we had any restraints or whatever. And then the new program was based on, we're talking about the costs and some other things associated with it. So it was probably refined. There was just a lot, it was more of a shotgun, I think,
Mhm.
the first time.
right. I just am really confident that the two uses can coexist.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just, and it is gonna be such a benefit to the community just to drive by it and
Yep.
Mhm.
see it. So I think we can work
Yes.
it out. Let's see if we see that. Okay, are we ready to move on? Other commitments we want to continue.
We had two from last time, didn't we? That we didn't cover?
Yeah, but those are the ones that are going to be on the
April,
Oh, okay.
Outdoor dining and
Scheduled for April. Okay,
naming of the bridge.
okay.
and I'm not sure who suggested this as a,
I don't know what it means.
Did anybody?
Which one?
The other commitments we want to continue.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either.
Sounds like a Bruce language.
No, because Bruce wrote, I don't know what this means.
Did you at one point?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Somebody had. Well,
I think we can move on.
okay, just
Oh.
one caveat. I attended the Cedar Board meeting and the reaction of the people, the other communities were, oh, somebody from Cannon Beach is finally going to show up.
Mhm.
And so I think it's important for us to get involved in some of those things. I was talking to a community member that said, let's see if you say that in a year, you know, whether you want to, but I mean, like right now, working with the Seaside Maker on the poster contest that we're doing. I mean, we're spending time together and talking about the different communities. And I think all of that stuff is valuable. So I would like to make sure that we are active countywide in some of those.
Yeah, and the city manager's talking that we used to meet quarterly, the entire boards. And while usually the subjects were so big that it wasn't anything that could get resolved, there's other things that we probably could be working on resolving, but resuming those meetings again.
Just the fact that you're discussing them, and even if they don't get resolved, that helps. I think.
Right. I think you can learn a lot from some of those discussions.
I think those other commitments we might want to continue, maybe they had something to do with other projects like the housing.
I was just gonna bring that up
Yeah,
because it was a commitment that the prior council did make.
Mhm.
And unfortunately with Jeff leaving, not exactly sure where the task force,
The regional.
regional task force
Right.
is going. There was a certain amount of momentum and I hope it continues.
I think it will.
Didn't Denise pick that up from Crest?
Yes,
Yeah, so,
well, she made at least a verbal commitment,
yeah,
so, and I'm hoping it moves forward, but it may.
And I think it's not solved, so we still need to be very much involved.
And it's my feeling too,
Everybody agree
Mhm.
with that?
at least for my part, I've attended every meeting except one. And I will continue to do so as a representative.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Something I'm interested in doing and want to.
Yeah. Okay, moving along. So deadlines for packet information, public comment, committee applications we've handled. Agree with that. Next, heritage tree discussion. I'm not sure who suggested that.
I did.
Okay,
And mostly I'd just like to get an update about where it is in terms of becoming something that's codified in the municipal code. I know at this point, last I'd heard from you that it's in Parks Committee.
and the Parks Committees submitted it to the council and the council approved the application
For resolution,
through resolution.
because if you put it through the code, there would be a penalty associated with it. And it's a new program, so they did it through resolution to see how it works.
Okay,
So the application's available.
And the Parks Committee has actually received an application.
Mhm.
They had to do some revisions on it because the goal this year is just to do one tree, but they have selected the tree, I believe.
No,
No, but they selected the location of the tree.
well, we put in for the whole Sitka Spruce Forest Reserve. And they told us that they're interested in one tree for this particular year. And I think that means, and maybe Anita, you can speak to this, it's still open because we haven't gone back and decided which tree in the Sitka Spruce Forest Reserve we'd like to put forward yet. And there won't be a meeting until, I think, the first actual decision for any nomination, the one tree from other people could still apply as well, but they'll only pick one tree for this first year. They want to see how that process goes and see, as far as expense with the city arborist, looking at the whole picture and all that. I'm a little frustrated, but I'm still grateful
Have
that
to be patient.
we at least.
Good things take time.
Yeah, good things take time, and so, did that make any sense? We are gonna look at doing one tree there, if we can agree on one tree, but other people besides our group can also put in applications. And then out of those, one tree will be selected this year.
Looking forward to scaling it up.
Right, yeah.
Wasn't there also an application put in by, for the Inspiration Point, the stand of trees? For
He
the
said,
whole
yeah.
Inspiration Point tree reserve or tree group?
It's the Sitka Spruce Forest Reserve.
No, we had another, we had
No.
separate.
There was
Yeah.
another one, but that was not for a single tree.
Right.
So we let them know that this year that we were already reviewing one application, because at the time it had been submitted. And that we were only wanting to do one tree this year.
So they know that now.
They know that.
Okay.
Anita?
Jen, that was Haystack LLC. I think.
Yeah.
Right, it was.
Well, I was just, I'm on the Parks Committee, so I can answer any specific question. I can tell you that it was decided that just one tree per year, which will be decided in November. I did ask if maybe we could vote on more than one tree a year, because to me, it's gonna take us, we'll have 5 trees in 5 years in that way.
No, it's just the first year.
Yeah, I thought it was just one tree for the first year, not for,
Well, that's where I'm not quite clear on just how the program is going to accelerate, because once Friends of the Trees applied for the entire stand at the Sitka Spruce Reserve, it was pulled back to just one tree that will be decided in November. And the cost of the arborist did come up. And I hoped that maybe the city arborist would just give us a flat rate for any things that he needs to look at to see if it qualifies. But it is a slow process, just because the committee wants to make sure that it's done right, although I'm not quite sure what is going to go wrong at this point, but we're pretty excited about it and hoping that we get a lot more applications and can approve more trees than just.
right.
Move forward.
Well, I personally would think that one tree every year for 5 years is not a good policy. I would
Right.
say that the first year I get it
Right.
to see how it works, but after that, I would hope that it would accelerate.
But I think we need to come before council if we're going to change that. I'm not quite clear, maybe Barb, because you were involved in the process before I came on the parks as far as.
All we said was one tree the first year.
First year, yeah.
It was never past the. first
Right.
year. So that was just one tree the first year to get our feet wet. And to understand the cost and the obligation of the time.
Mhm.
But that was the only parameter.
Right.
Right, so that's where after this first year, we need to know, okay, what are we gonna go with? Whether it's quarterly, whether we're gonna just, approve.
And that's something the Parks Committee will
Right,
be tasked with.
right.
Right.
We're not even gonna, I don't know that it'll come up before November now, so it's not clear.
Oh, well, that would be up to the Parks Committee. I mean, for future plans, we just know this year, the first year is going to be one tree.
Well, it's also something that council can give direction.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, my perception of being involved in the implementation of the program
Mhm.
was that it's the direction we would.
Yeah, what I was hoping is that council would know that Parks Committee is gonna come before you and hopefully say that we would like to, have a tree every month.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
I'm looking forward to your recommendation. Obviously, the cost is one of the things we're waiting to see.
Well, and that's where I'm not quite sure what it costs, what the arborist would charge us, I would hope that it would be nominal and it would just be a flat rate. So that, I don't know if that's something that council would discuss with the arborist or if that's something Parks or Public Works would figure out. Considerations, I guess, going forward as well.
Is that a discussion you should have with the arborist, that the committee should have with the arborist?
I'm not sure how we negotiate that cost.
I don't know if,
Trevor wasn't, I guess it varies depending on how many trees and what the issues are with the trees on what he charges the city.
What is the arborist deciding, whether it's a good tree or not?
Well, they've got a form that they go by and they look at, the height, the diameter, the health of the tree, the age of the tree.
They're the scientist involved.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
And the Heritage Tree Program, the application has specific criteria that it's going to be looking for. And it will all be on the right of way. Right now, no private property trees at this point. Were considered for heritage tree nominations.
well, I would think an arborist would be willing to, I mean, this is not, we're not a for-profit or a private homeowner or something. I would think that they would be, a good arborist would want to at least not do it for free, but give us a
Right.
really, affordable rate.
Exactly. Well, those are questions I'll ask at Parks Committee.
Great, thank you. You okay with all of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, next we have mayor authority to sign items, letters of support that come up before we have a chance to talk about them. Bruce?
Yeah, and these come up from time to time. Maybe the housing group would say we would like a letter from the city. And what the practice has been in the past is that unless it's something that as a matter of fact, I can't think of one that we said, no, this is probably not a good idea. And so the way it's been handled is that I always ask the mayor to sign them if it comes through me. And then the mayor, if she thinks that it's going to be okay, to go ahead and sign. And then we bring it to the next meeting as an information item. We all know that that's been done. But sometimes these things are applications for grants and other things. So we don't want to hold anybody up. So that's, but if it happened in March of this year, you could probably have your choice of dates. But that was a joke, everybody. Anyway, so we're just looking for, is the council willing to authorize that the mayor use her judgment to in signing something like that, but you would always know about it.
Yeah. I definitely.
I've always known Barb to use exceptional judgment.
Yes.
I have no problem.
I think if we had any questions, she's going to come to us. So.
Yeah. And so far, the first week or two, the housing thing,
Yeah.
and it was something that's very near and dear to me. But I thought, wait a minute, I'm just one person. And so, we, went through the process, and the League of Oregon Cities is very active right now with the legislature in session. And so there probably will be others, but I will use my sound judgment and make sure that you guys are all aware every time I do something crazy like that.
Ashley's got her hand up.
Oh, Ashley.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about this issue. Clearly, it's not been an issue here at the City of Cannon Beach, but it definitely has been an issue with other of my clients. And the issue is when the mayor is authorized to speak on behalf of the city council. So like any member of the council, the mayor can, sign a letter of support in her personal capacity and use her title as an identifier. So for instance, if there's a political group in Clatsop County that, need or ask for the mayor's support or any members, she can go ahead and sign on and say, her name, Mayor of Cannon Beach, and then be really clear that, for identification purposes only, or speaking in personal capacity. The issue here is when can she speak on behalf of the council, which is all of you guys. And there are going to be occasions where perhaps it's a controversial issue that the mayor is asked to, to sign on to on behalf of the city council, and whether the city council is authorizing the mayor at this point, to sign using her best judgment, or when does it need to come back to council for discussion. And if we are saying that the mayor has, the authority to use her judgment to sign on behalf of the city of Cannon Beach, then I think we should do that in a little bit of more formal capacity, like through amending the council rules or through a resolution. So it's clear that she always has the authority to do that. So those are my concerns. Like, if, I also trust mayor, to use her best judgment, and I doubt that she would ever be, adverse to the majority of city council when signing something like that. But because I've seen it in my other councils be controversial, I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Not to ask for personal gossip, but what types of things cause the controversy?
I'm trying to make sure that I'm not calling out anybody specifically.
Please feel free not to answer the question.
Well, let me think like a little bit more. Let me think a little bit more of a hypothetical. There was, accusations against members of Cannon Beach. I'm just going to use hypothetical members of Cannon Beach staff. Let's say that there was, I'm just going to use Jason. Let's say that there was a public outcry about something that Jason had done. Is the mayor authorized to write a response on behalf of the city council? Is she authorized to issue a letter or to sign on to something that's going on around town on behalf of the city council, where it's not clear that everybody on the city council feels the same way about this issue? Or let's say that, there's some sort of renewable energy, project going on in Clatsop County, and they have asked the mayor to sign a letter of support or draft a letter of support to send to the county when considering this new project. The mayor goes ahead and does so, but then it turns out that there are some controversies with this issue, and that 3 members of the council would not have signed that letter because they think there's significant problems with that, renewable energy project. So those are, some of the types of issues that could come up.
Thank you, Ash.
Anybody?
Idea, Bruce, how often we have letters that are actually looking for a city council endorsement, and how many of them are satisfied with a letter from the mayor?
Jen, what do you think? Maybe 10 times a year?
Yeah, it's not very many.
Yeah.
Well, and I know
One or the other.
It depends on what they're asking. Like the last one was from the mayor because it was on behalf of the Oregon Mayors Association. So I think we haven't had that many last year. I think because of COVID, things just haven't quite picked up. I think the majority just request mayor, don't you think, Bruce?
Yeah.
And if it was something asking for the entire council support, I would not sign it.
Right.
I would bring it to, it's the council.
I stand by my opinion.
And
As long as I've known you, Barb, you've exercised good judgment.
Thank you, Brent.
But I think Ashley makes a good point, and that's where we should draw the line. If it's asking for something from the mayor, personally, I would trust her judgment as well, and she would probably still come to us if there was any question. But if it's something that's more representing the council, I'm assuming again that Barb would bring it to us.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 2, but then if we bring you something, you can always reject it. And so we would send another letter saying, there was a misunderstanding, sorry, whatever. So, and these rarely have any impact other than politically. The state folks get a copy of them all, but because we said something or the Barb said something, Barb says something, we all jump. But if somebody else says something, it's not like we're going to be committed to anything in particular.
And I always like to do things right the first time, so I'm gonna bring it to you guys if I
Yeah,
think there's any, you know, have to write a letter saying got it wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I admit to my mistakes,
Mhm.
but I like to do it right the first time.
Right.
Okay, sign away.
Can we have a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Done.
Resume and wrap it.
Oh.
Okay, monthly status report. We have a copy of it and the question is just, is there things in the monthly status report that we don't find necessary and are there things that we would like to add?
It's my general impression of it is. It seems like things that are completed hang out on here a long time. Making the report a little bit longer. I don't know if that's true in my short time sitting here, but
Can you give an example?
emergency management, there's 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's got
So would it be more useful to have it appear the month that it's completed and then after that,
something like
take
that.
it off?
I made a note.
Yeah, it seemed like the city council tour of the cache sites was still on here. And it's like, okay, that's a little old news by this point. So might shorten it just a little bit.
My note says, refresh the monthly status report.
Okay.
That's good.
Old.
I think that's a great. idea.
Okay,
I am glad to see that the haystack, the HRAP report is a lot less than it used to be. Go page after page.
yeah,
That's
I mean, the purpose of this to me is the snapshot
Yeah.
of what the city has done that prior month. I'd like the statistics, though. I mean, it's amazing what goes on, but
Well, what about the public safety report? How come that's from December?
There's a delay with items for public safety because of how they do it, so they're always gonna be several months behind.
Oh, okay.
I do.
Also one from February, I printed out a few months
Okay.
ago, so.
And the tree report, that's, both of those are from December. I sure would like to see that more.
So that is what gets sent to planning commission, because this is done, like in the February one, we're working at it at the end of January, so the month isn't usually done yet when we're working on this.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
why it's the month before. It's a timing thing.
I do like to see the number of trees planted. That's, and I know this isn't tree planting time of year, but that's always nice to actually have some of the numbers on trees removed and trees planted. And nothing other than,
anything else? Okay, refresh that. Next is technology use, and I think I'm responsible for that one. Just when I first picked up my computer, my question was why. I mean, I was an Apple person for many years, and then I went to the PC world, and I just kind of wondered if anybody has a inclination to change from Apple to PC.
What do you
I
mean?
know
In terms of computers.
our iPads are really old. I think I'm using Wendy Higgins.
Aren't our iPads,
No, those iPads are not that
they're
old,
not Apple, no, they're,
4 years old.
they are Apple?
Yeah, I think so.
I looked it up.
Really?
Are they Apple?
One that has
Usually.
the original issue ones,
Yours isn't Apple.
sort of.
Yeah, I can't.
Colleen gave me an extra one that she'd had because my original one broke.
Yes, that's right. You had a cracked screen.
Yeah,
I think the other ones are newer than that.
Are they all Apple?
Yeah, so when I first started here, they had Apple computers for everybody. And the city manager said he didn't want that, so we changed them to PCs, but we left the iPads with the council because that's what they wanted to use at that time. So, and when Barb came in to get hers, I did suggest this would be a good topic for you guys to talk about. If there's things that can make your life easier, or how you'd like to see things change, we can certainly talk about it. If it's something that's going to cost some money, we can budget those things, because I'm not sure we have much in the budget this year, but if you want something, we can make a change in July by putting it in the budget. So now would be the time to discuss that if there's something you want to talk about.
I guess it depends on what, I mean, for me, all I do is turn it on, look at the emails, respond to the emails if there's a response, and now I can print something off, and that's it. I mean, so I don't really care. As long as I, as long as I'm.
the same. My computer skills are very limited. So I would defer to someone else if they had an opinion about it that required something else.
And I know you're an Apple.
I haven't even dug into the iPad yet. I just haven't,
Right.
my own computer has worked, but I probably need a little less of it, and convert over.
I have, every now and then I'll send you a note and say, this isn't working, and you fix it and we go on.
Right.
So I don't really have that much of a problem. I'm so used to it. I mean, I've had it for 6.5 years, so I'm not, doesn't make any difference to me.
And you're very responsive, Rusty. I mean, I
Yeah.
felt like, oh, he's gonna hear from me again because I can't make anything work, but you never made me feel like I'm an idiot. So,
I guess my question is, I never use my cell phone. My city cell phone. I don't think I've ever used it.
That's fine. If you don't, you can give it back to me if you don't want to use it.
All right, I think I might.
As of right now, I think Barb is the only one that has a phone now. Which I think is probably a good thing though for the mayor to keep it completely separate.
Yeah.
And if,
I do too.
no, Ashley will probably tell you to make sure and just keep things separate. So that was the primary purpose for that. Yeah, there's the thumbs up. So.
Okay, so we're happy with what we have.
I'm more than happy to listen to what, if for some reason you felt.
No, I mean, I brought it up because I remember that we were an Apple city, and then we suddenly switched to PC, and I thought everybody, I mean, I see that you guys sit here in the meetings and scroll up and down, and I just thought we could talk but I'm fine with the majority.
Yeah, I'm so used to using it, I mean, I know what the problems are and what the
Sure.
problems aren't and what I can do and what I can't do, and yeah.
And then I think the packet discussion would be the other thing. If there's anything, how that process is working for your review, that type of thing. If you have any comments on that we could talk about that as well.
Well, I think the city staff does an amazing job with all the packets. It'd be really nice if we could get to the stage where there were no revisions, except for emergencies,
Yeah, and I think your timeline will dictate that. If you cut off and say no changes after a certain point, that makes things a lot easier, right? So Jen doesn't have to reissue something.
Were you talking about though viewing it on the iPad?
Well, I think that what Barb's saying is they get the packet right and then it gets changed and then.
I understand that. I thought your question though was more about viewing it on the iPad, making your notes, being comfortable with the program.
Yeah, I mean, if there are any concerns, then now's the time to talk about that.
well, as long as you don't mind continuing to do mine hard copy, and I'll come down and pick it up. Okay.
The only thing I think you've heard me say this before is when you do the revision and you do the revision on the entire packet, and then you send a whole new, I mean, you do a revision and then you send a whole new packet. I've already made notes on the former packet that I'm not going to go back and so I just want the revision part of it.
And I do that as well. So that I always redo the whole packet, and then under supporting documents, I just put what was revised
Yeah,
for that reason. So that way you can have your one up there and then just the actual revised one.
yeah, that helps.
Hopefully, we tried really hard not to revise packets.
Yeah.
That is, Bruce knows I can't stand revising packets.
Yeah, it seems like there was a contract like that
Yeah,
not too long
Yeah.
ago, that it was like a draft came through and then a red line copy came through. And then the new revised version came through, and I was trying to cross-reference based on my notes.
yeah.
And even some of the items had changed, so I wasn't able to really cross-reference at all.
And where we have the problem, the biggest problem I had was with the planning commission documents, anything that we had with planning commission, because we'd have I can't even remember how we did it, the changes or the document and then the changes and then the previous document that the planning commission might have seen and then the minutes of the meeting and everything was like the same. And then finally you got to the red point where everything was crossed out that was old and then the new put in. And it was like we had a packet for the planning commission that was this big when it only really needed to be this big to show where the changes were. And it was like a lot of repetition of the documents. I have to learn how to read that stuff so that you aren't reading it over and over and over again, but you're reading maybe the original and then the changes and then move on. So that is where, when we get a new planning director, we probably need to talk about the kind of documents we need to see or they want to see in the packet, because we were getting a lot of repetition of documents.
And I always thought that was maybe because it was the law that we saw everything that was presented.
Yeah, and I think we do need to see everything as represented. It's just that we saw it over and over and over again.
I think we can change the order. I'm more comfortable giving you all the stuff, to make sure that if somebody comes back after us, you saw everything. But that we can put it in an order that works better for you.
Yeah, I think that would work just as well.
Hey, anything else on that? Okay, good job. We'll continue. Okay, code of conduct. And I think we Ashley or Bruce, do you guys want to talk about?
I have not worked on it. Ashley, do you?
I think we just, why do you think we need to have a code of conduct?
I did.
Well, Ashley.
Ashley,
Yeah.
I thought you and Ashley and I had to talk about the fact that a lot of cities are
Yeah.
coming
I think-
up with codes of conduct to prevent issues, and that it might be time for Cannon Beach to also have one.
Yeah, I think that was more Ashley's idea. She's more enlightened than I am.
I think this goes to the issue we we're talking about earlier, just
Right.
about a standard for board and commission members. If we wanted to have a code of conduct that, we set for our board and commissioner members, and then if they violate that code of conduct, we have reason to remove them. So it's another way to address the issue that we were talking about earlier.
Do you have examples, Ashley, of other councils that have codes of conduct?
I do. So one of my councils, the city of Fairview, has both the council rules and a code of conduct. I believe that just applies to them. But we can easily apply that both to the city council and boards and commissions. And it really is just like using respectful language, communicating in a professional manner. It is things that I think are a little bit what you would expect about anybody in a professional setting, but it lays those expectations out and puts folks on notice that, if you choose to act in a manner contrary to this code of conduct, you would be removed.
And are they posted in the city council chambers? Is that how people know what the code of conduct is?
So it's the code of conduct in this case is only applicable to the members of council.
Members of
And
council.
no, it's not posted in the council chambers, but it is it's pretty easily found on the website. So if you go to the city council webpage, you have both the rules of procedure and you have the city council code of conduct.
So the code of conduct would only apply to city councilors?
In that case,
Committee members?
In that case, it does. But for the city of Cannon Beach, we could apply it both to city council and all members of the boards and commissions.
but not to the audience members.
Oh, that's a totally different can of worms. Yeah.
There's our code of conduct.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Seems like enough.
Let's hope it is. I think we probably need to look at something for all of our council and our committees and our commissions and our boards. I hate to go down that road, but if there was ever a problem and we didn't have one, I mean, a serious problem.
Is it clear and objective?
I mean, it's as clear and objective as these things can really be. So let me actually get it in front of me and we can talk about it. And this is just one example that, you know, because of some things that transpired within theirs, within, you know, their government, they decided it was necessary. It can obviously be amended for whatever issues we would need to address.
And is the council code of conduct that you're now looking at easily applied to boards and commissions, or is it pretty much specific to counselors?
I think it's applicable just about anybody in a professional setting, to be honest. Let me find it.
And that's the direction I think we should go if we're going to do it, is that everybody has the same rule book to follow, to be professional.
Okay, so it's like, this is the city of Fairview. Mayor and city council will aspire to a common ideal in conducting their work for the benefit of the citizens of Fairview as memorialized below. In the three sections, or the sections are respect, prepare, speak, listen, ask. And in respect, assume good intentions and express differing opinions, be punctual and prepared so that the meeting will go smoothly, be respectful in how you address staff, mayor, councilors, community members, and visitors, respect everybody's time, model good behavior, operate transparently, prepare, you know, I think that I don't need to read that. Speak at the meeting or forever hold your peace, bring forward differing opinions, acknowledge what you don't know, be clear and concise, ask questions of each other. If you disagree or have a criticism, address the topic and issue. Do not target the person. Don't characterize another person's intent. If you have a concern about a staff member, address it to the city manager privately outside a public meeting. Council members, staff, and community members are all bringing differing perspectives. Wait to speak until the person has clearly finished. Clarify your understanding if something confuses you. Ask, do I need to ask this question, or do I need to know this to make a decision now? If your question is not in the context of the topic, save your question for offline. So that is how, you know, the city of Fairview has agreed to interact with each other. And again, I think a lot of it is just being a professional, but putting that standard out there for everybody, you know, does make it known that, you know, if you do not do those things, you know, you are in violation of these rules and could be subject to removal.
And how long has the city of Fairview had the code of conduct?
Years now. Let's see, it was first signed. Oh, no, it was reissued in 23. It was originally entered into in 2022.
And has it helped?
Yeah.
Because you said it was prompted by some issues that came up. This is a good reminder.
I think I'll say this. I think it helps center the conversation when you have agreed to certain standards. And it's helpful in reminding people that, you know, potentially are getting close to the line to bring them back to center.
And did you
There's
say,
not a- I'm sorry?
did you say city council code of conduct is on the
Mhm.
website?
I thought it was. I ended up just Googling it, or yeah, just Googling it, it came up.
It's not on the city council page. That is
Yeah,
obvious.
I'm surprised by that, but I thought it was. I went into their website and just put code of conduct and it popped up.
Are you looking at ours? Are you, our
City website.
Or Fairview's?
City website,
Which city?
Which city?
us.
No, we don't have a
Oh,
code.
no.
Oh, I thought.
We can do anything we
it was
want,
city
Gary.
council code of conduct.
No, it was
That's the
Fairview's.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's,
And I think-
Misunderstood.
that's fine. You can do that.
We can display any conduct we want right now.
And we do.
I would be more than happy to review something. I don't know if I'm at a point where I could make a decision about it right now.
Oh, no, we're not.
We're not happy to
Yeah.
talk about it.
So you'd like it to be a discussion item. That's all I'm
Okay,
proposing to consider.
do you feel like maybe there hasn't been a problem? And
Oh, I don't think there's been a problem either.
Yes,
I
yes, I don't feel like there has been, and maybe it's not a huge priority, but I'm willing to listen to. I'm willing to look at it and listen if I should be convinced that we need one. But it would be nice if council and all boards and commissions had something similar. Pretty basic.
Lisa, do you feel?
I don't see it as a problem, but if everyone wants to do it, then I'm all, all the things that Ashley read from the Fairview Code of Conduct to me are kind of no-brainers,
Agreed.
so if we want to, memorialize it, fine.
I kind of feel like I think we need a code of conduct for the audience more than we need a code of conduct. And I'm serious. We've had some pretty,
Not you guys.
no, not, but
I said on your best behavior. You knew we were.
I'm thinking of when we had the food tax, the volatile.
Yeah.
It was pretty darn volatile here. We could have used a good code of conduct.
Well, I don't think
But I mean,
I don't think he,
have the
I
sign.
think he can control that. People get hot political issues and.
It would be nice to be able to point to something and say, hey, But other than that, but I think more for the audience than for the council
Need
committees.
Barb to say, okay, that's enough from you, sit down.
And I am not gonna put up, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
want that kind of an atmosphere.
I agree.
And I think we need to set good examples
Mm-hmm.
of how we interact with each other. And we treat everyone with respect, and you don't always agree, but there's a polite way to disagree.
Mhm.
And I think that's missing in lots of places right now.
I'm not sure that's missing here particularly,
Right,
Yeah, I haven't.
among us or among the other committees.
right. No, I meant audience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want personal attacks and
Ashley, do you want to convince us that we really need to jump into this?
No, what I more was suggesting is, we had an issue where, somebody who was associated with the city acted very disrespectfully, and, what tools did we have to address that type of behavior? And this is, one of the tools that we have to address that type of behavior. And so that's how this conversation started. Did we want to have a code of conduct? What kind of, when people are on members of board and commissions, what kind of language do we expect from them? What kind of professional conduct do we expect to have something to point at to say that this is inappropriate? So that's where that came from. Regarding the discussion about disruptive members of the audience, I do have a lot to say about this. I unfortunately have a deep amount of recent experience addressing this issue, but I will leave it at LOC has a really great manual about, how to address disruptive members of the audience. There are a lot of First Amendment concerns regarding, what can you do with somebody who is creating an actual disruption and when somebody actually does create a disruption. So, people making public comment that is incendiary or even uses inappropriate language, what sort of First Amendment rights do they have? What sort of tools does the council have to address it? You should feel very fortunate that although it has become definitely heated at City of Cannon Beach City Council meetings, especially during, an issue like the food tax, which is controversial, in my world, everybody kept it relatively respectful and we did not have anything that rose to the level of an actual disruption.
Keep her to say. There's a bigger venue.
Yeah, I mean, what I saw at the city council, I'm not sure what happened outside, but.
Right.
So I guess to answer your question, I'm fine if we don't go down this road. It was more to address a concern that was raised to me.
I think it's something we can visit again if we need to, but right now we have a lot of other things that are really important. And I think we should just put it on the back burner and think about it, but.
So after we figure out the management for Cannon Beach Elementary.
And funding.
So much, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
And just a note, in
Yes.
10 minutes here, I'm going to have to drop off, or I'm just going to step
Okay.
away for 30 minutes and come back. But so if
I think-
anything comes up between 4 and 4:30.
Okay, I think we're working on finishing before then, but unless somebody brings something up that I'm not expecting. We've already talked about council contacting the city attorney. We can take that off the list, and I believe we've talked about appointing committee members process already. Got that figured out? In terms of deadlines and.
Yeah, but I think, I don't know when a good time to talk about commission or committee, what to do well, I guess there was an issue last week when no quorum showed up for design review board, and there was someone from the state with an application that went unanswered. I don't know, is this the time to talk
Yeah,
about it?
this-
Okay. All right, well, I think we should definitely talk about that because we had someone from the state with an expectation that they were going to have an application reviewed, and there was supposed to be information provided for, suggestions. And he showed up for the meeting and there was no meeting. And no notice, and the chairman sort of sat there with egg on his face wondering, wow, what happened here? And so how do we address that? I mean, there's a 120-day rule involved in the application.
Right.
I don't know what the procedure is for something like that. Does the council address his application directly, or do we request that the design review board add an additional meeting so that they can have a second go at reviewing it so that he can get it done within a timely manner? Or do we just ignore it and say, oh, well, that was embarrassing.
I
Let's
don't think,
move on.
I don't think we can ignore it, especially because of the limit, the 120. So are the facts, as Lisa outlined them, in terms of when the meeting started, that everyone assumed there was going to be a quorum. Nobody had.
One person had called in, right? One person was having some medical issue. And then there was the chairman. And then 3 other members didn't tell the chairman. Am I correct in this? Didn't let the chairman know?
As I
Or the
understand it,
city staff.
2 people called within a minute or 2 of 6 o'clock. 2 people didn't call at all. The chair was here.
So the chair had no idea that he was not going to have a quorum.
And also, if you call it a couple of minutes of 6 on a meeting night, you're probably not going to get anybody.
Well, no, and you're also not going to be able to alert the person who has the application pending before the board that his application won't be heard.
Mhm.
So, I mean, to me, that's embarrassing.
Anita, do you want to say something?
Well, if I may, as a member of the Design Review Board, I did send an email at approximately 4:30 to Robert because I wasn't sure what the procedure is for letting staff know. Robert did reply, so that is on the record that I did state that I would not be attending. As for the other members, I have no idea that was going to happen. I have reached out to try to apologize because I was horrified that yes, the state park ranger came to the meeting, the only agenda, and we had tabled it because we did have more questions, but then again, not sure what questions we could ask because of the criteria that we're being asked to use for this gate at the wayside. And so we have rescheduled the meeting for next Thursday.
Good. All right.
And
So that
I
takes
have
care of the,
committed to being there, absolutely. Another committee member has as well, just as much as I can tell you right now. And yeah, it was very concerning that happened. So I'm gonna do my best to try to make amends for that.
great. I'm glad you've scheduled another meeting. So
Yeah, well, that's what, right away, as soon as I got the email from our chair that had happened, what can we do? So, and I talked to Bruce a little bit and I'm gonna bring some cookies, I think.
Right.
Try to.
I think there's always cookies. And I was incorrect in the information about Anita that if you send an email.
I did say.
Yeah, so-
Robert, so now I know I need to send it to the chair as well.
So again, it points out to training of our
Yes.
committees.
That's why they're need rather than later.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that makes, I mean, we're gonna try to make it right, really, we are, so I apologize for embarrassing the council and the city. But that was not the intent of anyone.
thanks a lot. And that really clears it all up for me.
We're trying to do our best.
You need 3 for a quorum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Not okay.
not
Oh,
okay.
okay. Okay.
More. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead, Bruce.
yeah, I'm just having so much fun. What else-
On your birthday.
How else would you want to spend your birthday? We do need to have a conversation about the 120-day rule. And how that impacts because. I don't know, I think I wrote something up and sent it to you.
Yeah.
But it's a real concern that if the planning commission uses 90 days, you'll have less than 10. And there's no way you could remand it back to the planning commission. And so I think it should be split more evenly. If they're not done, then it just automatically moves on to you so that you don't, or they can have more meetings until they do get it done. And, but I think that that's important. That we don't let something slip through the 120-day crack because they're meeting every month and that's all.
And now the applicant can waive the 120-day rule. They choose to, can't they?
Yes,
And would state parks be willing to do that? Do we know, or has anyone asked them in this case?
I hope that they will, unless if it doesn't get resolved at the next meeting. Because I thought it was like April 14th or something was the 120 days. And I imagine that they would, but I don't think everybody would necessarily do it. But quite frequently, there's a 30-day delay right up front by a request. And then there was a 30-day on this one. I think they were waiting for more information. In conversation we had at the meeting is we can't afford to wait until your next meeting because it's after the time for the 120 days. And I had a misunderstanding about what the 120-day consequences are. What it does, I thought that it was like an approval, the equivalent of an approval. for the applicant, but it's not. It gives the applicant the ability to go to court and say that because of the delays that these folks have imposed on me, I'm asking you to rule in my favor rather than going through another appeal process or something. So it's not as drastic as what I thought that it was, but it's still, if somebody wanted to do it and we didn't have good reasons for the 120 days that have been used up. And I've seen it twice now, I think, and it's unfair to council. You have no time. You have 20 days, like if it's at 90 days, you guys get it, is a 20-day automatic notice time. And so there's 10 days left.
And I think it's especially important for the planning commission because an application can come in that the planning commission has a huge problem with. And if they don't meet that criteria and the person isn't willing to waive, which of course they wouldn't be, then, you get something happening here that you don't want. So I think it really, really is important to pay attention to that.
That's why I think it should be like a 60-50 or something like that between the two, but it should get to you because you're the decision maker. I'm sorry, Nancy.
That's all right. I know I've asked this question before and I can't remember the answer, but it's getting late. Is it a state? Is 120 day, is it state, right?
I believe they did. Yes.
I think
If you mentioned, well, then if they don't meet certain number of days for the planning commission, maybe it should just move on to the council. Is that legal? Does the planning commission have to make a decision before it goes to the council, or can the council just?
Council can take it. You have to, we would have to change the code. And after a certain amount of time, it would come straight to the council.
Has anyone talked to the planning commission about?
I did one time. I went up, I was talking about something else and I made a comment from the podium about the 120 days and what the impact is. Because, quite frequently it's, well, let's go pick a next meeting, and all of a sudden you're at 90. So, and I don't think that it's fair to the applicant or to the people in the city because they elected you to make those decisions. And if you're precluded from making it, I think that's wrong. So that's why my suggestion is if it's not done by a certain time, it just automatically goes to you. Because that's who's supposed to make that decision and not have a time frame based on whatever's left. And your inability to have more than one meeting, for example, to decide it.
it'd be great. I'd love to hear Bill's whole take on this and exactly how it works out, because I just wouldn't want to screw this up. I'd like to make sure that we know that it's completely okay to do it that way.
Sure. Yeah, and this came from a conversation with Bill, and he told me that we would have to change the code.
Okay.
So
Part of the, just is from a historical perspective, is that the planning commission makes their decision. And if they make it in a timely fashion, it's not a problem. The problem is that the decision's appealed.
Right.
So if they make a decision within 120 days and it isn't appealed, then the city council doesn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
The problem is that the planning commission has had an issue and runs it out to 100 days, makes their decision, and the applicant appeals, then we only have those 10 to 20 days to decide on the appeal. So what you're suggesting is to change that and take the decision out of the planning commission's purview and have the city council make that decision. And then we still have to follow those 120 days. And if it's appealed, then we go ahead and rule on the appeal.
And I think that you're 100% correct. Someplace I got the perception that there was some type of an event that goes to the planning commission, they make a recommendation, then goes to council. So let me follow up on that.
Okay,
That's the one that I was more worried about.
all right.
But it sounds like more than anything, this is lighting a fire under planning commission to make sure it gets handled and doesn't get sent to us.
But does that mean,
Having been a planning, I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
does that mean that if the if the planning commission didn't make its decision within a certain number of days and it went to the council for a decision and the council made a decision that the applicant could appeal. And so then we would be hearing an appeal on the same decision that we'd already made.
I don't know how that would work out.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
Or if it would go right to Luba.
yeah.
I don't know.
The whole time I was on the planning commission, there was one issue when we had I can't remember the name of it, but it was a takings measure 49.
Mhm.
That was ultimately reversed, but the city needed to make a decision on it. And at the time, our city planner, Reinhard Bartle, took that decision out of the planning commission's scope and gave it to the city council because he determined it was important enough to do that.
I think that was on the Holland property.
Possible. I can't remember the exact particulars because I didn't get to make a decision on it.
Yeah, you want
I
to?
just wanted to say real quickly that I'm concerned about this changing something because what I've seen, and I go to most of those planning commission meetings, is often more recently, in the last couple of years, we have been having a problem with certain developers not giving all of the information needed for the planning commissioners to make a real definite decision. And so the problem has been that we've had to get more information, the planning commissioners, before they can really make a real wise decision. So it's not, I don't think, anything to blame the planning commissioners, which I kind of feel is what's happening here. I think that's a mistake. I think the planning department, when they are ruling that an application is complete, and then it's a date, that date, as I understand it, is when the 120-day rule begins. And so I don't think it's the fault of the planning commissioners. I think they're doing their due diligence by having to ask for different information that has not been given to them. And so the application being deemed complete is a problem that we've been having lately, in my opinion. So I think this is a more complicated issue. And I think it's really important that we have a bigger discussion on this because I think it's a very important change if we do this. Maybe the suggestion of having the planning commissioners start having another meeting if it's necessary, that might be a way to help out.
Yeah.
But we have to get, this is me as public, we have to be able to see the information of the developer in order to even give the planning commissioners our input as citizens. And if it's not a complete application, but it's been deemed a complete application, that is a problem.
Well, I agree, Jan, with that. And I don't think that's ever happened, at least in my time on the planning commission. I don't think the planning commission has ever allowed the 120 days to elapse, or, you know, they were willing to have another meeting if they had to. But I was referring like to a case like, for example, if a group doesn't show up for a meeting and the 120 days is still running, like the gate for the state parks. But I'm saying in a case like that, unless they have another meeting, which they have decided to do, which is great, because that takes the problem away.
I'm not talking about the DRB situation. I'm really referring to what Bruce is saying about taking this, away from the planning commission and having you guys take it on. I think that's a dangerous change, and
We're just discussing right now, though.
I'm saying
This is just a discussion.
we need to discuss this more fully and really look at what's really the problem.
Okay,
It's not as simple as it's been presented.
And it hasn't been a problem with the planning commission at all, I don't think. They always have been willing to do what they needed to do to make sure they stayed within the 120 days, except for that one exception you talked about, which seems like a very different thing.
That was quite some time ago, but
Yeah.
there was, and Bruce mentioned it. That we were forced to make a rather hasty decision. I believe it was a year ago.
Yeah, I think it had to do with the Roberts and the other, but Jan, I've seen, for example, at the last meeting, somebody come up with a request for a study that had nothing to do other than trying to extend it out. And so that's not something that staff should have known and had caught at the beginning. There's a list of things that staff is supposed to have. Sometimes people can be, I can be obtuse and go ahead and get so fixated on something, I want more information about it, that others might, you're nodding your head so quickly. Just kidding. My gosh, you people are so. Jan's like, he's obtuse. But I've seen that there's been, say a sense of frustration or whatever, and then, well, I want this study, and then boom, 30 more days. So I think that this needs to be a good, hard discussion. I think it can happen as part of the code audit, but there are times when I think a certain amount of it is self-inflicted based on what the requests are, and then you can't compare that to what the boxes that they check to say whether or not an application is complete. So I think that there's plenty on both sides, Jan.
Okay, good. So,
Yeah.
but we need to talk about it in
Yes,
clarity.
yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed. And thanks for your comments.
Is there any way of getting examples of this happening? For instance, the one that happened a year ago.
I can try to look at that one.
Yeah. Okay.
And do we have that someplace? We probably do.
I don't understand the question.
Yeah, I'd like to know about that, Robert.
Like a situation that happened when we didn't
I
have
was part of.
time to go to
planning
council or
board.
where additional information was required.
How much time?
Where it went to council,
About 10 days.
but we were right up against the wall.
Piatka is a perfect
Yeah.
example.
right.
That one we preemptively did a hearing notice on
I can't.
because
Yeah.
the way the dates
And
fell,
if they did,
that we
maybe
wouldn't
it's
have had
because
enough
of
time to wait until the
information
council, the
to make
planning
an
commission
informed
decision.
decision.
So we preemptively noticed it.
What does that mean,
That way-
preemptively? No.
So we noticed it
Assume.
before the planning commission made their decision because in case he wanted to appeal it, because you would have had just enough time to hear it at one meeting before 120 days expired. So we went ahead and noticed it. And then planning commission, I believe, denied it. And then he ended up not filing appeal, so they canceled the meeting. But we did it preemptively to make sure we hit that 120 days.
This is the initial First and Spruce project.
Yeah, and it was just.
No,
No, it was, I think it was.
Roberts,
Shows,
Roberts.
it's over here.
Roberts.
no, I'm talking about.
Forest Lawn.
Oh,
The one most recently, we had preemptively, was it Forest Lawn? It was a Forest Lawn decision. But because there was a chance he could appeal it, and in order to meet the 20-day notice, we had to notice it before they made their decision. So we went ahead and got it out, and then we had it scheduled to do a scope of review if needed at one meeting, and then we would hear it at the next one, and it gave, I think, council 1 or 2 days to make a decision. But thankfully, he didn't appeal it. We were able to cancel it. But that was just a few months ago, probably like within the last 6
It
months.
might have been First and Spruce.
It might have been
It's
first.
been so
It was
many.
one of the two.
Yeah.
That recently happened. So met with Jeff and he decided to preemptively do it. So instead of asking for a extension. I mean, I think his plan was still to ask for an extension, but in case he said no, we had everything done if need be.
And who can ask for an extension? It can be anybody, or is it anybody that's connected with the application?
Are you talking about a continuation or extension of the 120 day?
Continuation, continue, I guess it's a continuation.
Anybody can ask for a continuation.
So anybody coming from the audience, anybody's not connected can ask.
Yes. And then that can hold you back a lot too, because if people ask for continuations and that's eating into your 120 days.
But it isn't always granted if you ask.
Right.
I think it has to be.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
There are certain cases where it does not have to be. that would be a bill question, but I think.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
think,
they're-
Yeah.
Okay, I still just think it's important.
I think it's important too,
Yeah,
Bruce.
so that's why I brought it
I
up.
just wanted to voice my concerns about it. And, you know, that we adhere to one, Oregon land use
Sure.
laws and the process that we
Yep.
have and established.
So will you be bringing this back then to another meeting?
I'll probably make sure that it gets on an agenda of a vote on it.
Okay.
oh, good, okay. Okay, anything else? Anyone?
Just for good of the order.
Sure.
Um,
Are we ready for good of the order? Are you done?
I'm good.
Okay, good of the order.
is SEI filing time, if everybody's.
Oh, yeah.
With that,
I did, I passed.
okay, I did too,
And then
okay.
Thank you,
I
Brandon.
did it. I did it the day they sent it out,
Okay,
but I do it on my own computer. I don't do it on the city website. Is that
It's fine.
okay?
Yeah, because you're just doing it on the SEI website,
Mhm.
the Oregon
Ethics.
Ethics website. And for you and Barb, we had to reissue tokens because your email address has changed and they don't let you go in and change a person's email address. So that's why you had to process a little, like, it didn't work the way it did in the past for you
Right.
guys.
Yeah.
Because they don't let you change email addresses. You actually remove the person and then re-add them in. and-
Right. So instead I said, forget about doing me on the city website. I'll just keep it on my, the one I do the planning commission.
Yeah, that's the same website.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
anything else for good of the order? Ashley, thank you. If here's, I think you need to go, but
Yeah.
thanks everyone and see you tomorrow. Okay, we're adjourned.